Meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. Oh, sorry. Sit back. Call the roll, please.
Johanna Herget.
Here.
Matthew Williams.
Here.
Frank Neuer.
Here.
Glenn LePope.
Here.
Heather O'Donnell.
Here.
Bianca Tanis.
Here.
Teresa Thompson.
Here. All right, please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have any agenda changes, and we have our report from Julie.
So I just want to start off with congratulating the cast and crew of Footloose who performed 4 shows this week. They did an amazing job and everyone had a really fun time, and I just want to credit them for their great work. Tonight, on the topic of music, we have the jazz cabaret going on. So a bunch of our band students are performing in the cafeteria. We had our National Honor Society induction earlier this week on Monday, and welcomed, I think, around 60 new kids to NHS, which is a really big group and a really awesome achievement for all of them. Spring sports are off to a great start this season. There was a baseball scrimmage today, varsity boys baseball. They won their game. And also, the Maroon, our school newspaper, published a new issue today. They gave out their first paper copy, and you go to NPCSD.com. They have all of their information posted there.
Excellent, thank you. All right, that brings us to public comment. I'm just going to read something really quickly. So I wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming to our meeting. And for those of you that signed up to public comment, it's really important to the board that we hear from the public, and we want to make sure that we hear from everyone. We appreciate all the emails we've gotten and take your input very seriously. We ask that you in turn respect our board members' time tonight, because it's really important that our board members are fresh for the discussions we have to have. Last meeting was the community forum, which allowed for more time. And I just lost my thread. Tonight we don't have a forum, it's just a regular public comment. Our guidelines are to keep comments to 3 minutes or less and allows for a total of 30 minutes of comment. Do we have that comment sheet? I just want to see how many people have signed up. If everyone uses their 3 minutes, that leaves for room for 10 people to comment. And we do have 2 public comments, they're each 30 minutes, so if you don't make it through the first one, yeah, we have nine or 10 people. We do have a few emails. So I think we're going to be okay. We ask that you stick to the 3 minutes, or if you haven't timed yourself, maybe look through and make sure you focus on the most important things that you want to say, so that everybody gets a chance to speak. And our district clerk will keep time and bang the gavel when your time is up so that you know. And then we'll ask you to clear the podium for the next speaker. Once everything is, all the in-person comments are concluded, then I'll move to the email comments. And it's the same thing. If we run out of time, those email comments will be made available to the public in paper copy. Okay? All right, so we have our first public comment is Rebecca Burdett.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Burdett. I'm a teacher of pre-K over at Duzane Elementary School. Superintendent Grotto, Dr. Oler Marks, and members of the Board of Education. I just wanted to take a moment tonight, as we face so many tough budgetary challenges, to thank you for your support of our pilot universal pre-K class during the 2022-23 school year. It's been a fantastic year for the 16 students who were drawn from our blind lottery. As you know well, over 50 families applied for these 16 spots, and it broke our hearts to have to turn any families away from the kind of education we were offering. The 16 students who were able to come to Duzine joined us for singing and playing, counting and reading, for walks on the Millbrook Preserve and digging in the green classroom garden. They learned about ramps and pathways and bee-bots and trout in our new streams lab. They learned to listen carefully to all kinds of stories and to share their opinions about what they had heard. And maybe most importantly, they learned how to make a great plan and use teamwork to solve problems, wonderful problems, thorny and complex problems. Problems like, how can I write my name with all these strange letter shapes? How can I build a block building bigger than me that can stand up all week long? How can I apologize to my friend when I hurt her feelings? How can I speak my mind and share my feelings when everyone's looking at me? How can I make a pumpkin or corn or bean seed grow? How can I make food from corn, beans, and squash and serve it to all my friends' families in a real restaurant? And tomorrow, these resourceful and creative 4- and 5-year-olds will be showing their solution to yet another big, beautiful problem. How can I make a puppet show with every one of my friends where everyone gets a special part to do? How can we make a stage big enough for all these bird puppets? And how can we write an exciting story that teaches people about littering and cleaning up nature? Tomorrow, Danger in Birdtown is being performed in the pre-K and will be the answer to all of these questions. Soon, you will all be considering the fate of next year's 4-year-olds. Thanks to support from New York State's universal pre-K funding, we have it within our reach to provide high-quality pre-K to all our district's 4-year-olds. Know that we, the early childhood educators at Duzine, in partnership with a community-based organization, are ready to implement a truly universal pre-K program that meets the needs of all who apply. We fully realize that it will be a hard push to get this done by September. There are many infrastructure issues to work out, but as we said last spring, we can't make our district's youngest students wait another minute longer. Thank you in advance for our hardworking and dynamic and joyous preschoolers by keeping them in the forefront of your thinking. With respect and gratitude, Rebecca Burdett.
Thank you for your comment. Next we have Casey Fisher.
Last time it was moved back, so I felt taller. Dear members of the board, it was very clear at the last meeting that the concern for social emotional needs for all students was at the forefront. So much so that all of the social workers were added back. We very much appreciate this. However, there is more to be done. The reduction of elementary school teachers goes beyond class sizes and student enrollment numbers. Student achievement and their ability to thrive are directly affected by student-to-teacher ratio. More individualized attention is necessary to address the many deficits that have been identified to provide a more equitable environment for student achievement. Based on Lenape school data at the beginning of this year, more than half of all students were significantly below grade level for math. Almost a third of all students at Lenape currently receive Tier 2 or Tier 3 support in literacy programs. Although our students are making gains and showing growth, they are still struggling and the journey is not over just yet. This is solely because of our teachers implementing programs and giving individualized attention where it is needed. Our students have missed out on the foundational skills that are necessary for growth. Elementary school teachers are the frontline workers who have been addressing these areas of need, including social, emotional, and essential academic needs. The proposed cuts would also require a significant shift in teacher assignments, taking highly skilled teachers away from their area of expertise. This will create yet another instance in which teachers will experience a learning curve at a crucial time when students are requiring the most individualized and specialized attention. According to the district's mission statement, we are responsible for the continuous growth and development of our students. Since teachers have a direct impact on instruction and growth, it is necessary to keep the levels of programming as they are. Consider this. Within the last 3 years, we have had more administrative hires while student needs have increased dramatically. We should be focusing more on student impact through direct teacher involvement. New Paltz Central School District's policy 4212 displays our current district's organizational structure. Consider how top-heavy our school district is and how there are little to no reductions administratively or to non-essential budget items. COVID funds were designated to assist our students. There are many questions as to where those funds went, especially with the creation of additional administrative positions in recent COVID years. We impact the students the most. Teachers should be the last to be cut during a time when student needs have continued to grow. The effects of the pandemic are not over. The students shouldn't have to face the consequences for the questionable whereabouts of funds. Budget time is always a shell game. Maybe we should look underneath some of those shells to see where the burden could be shared.
Thank you for your comment. Next, we have Christiane Davis.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christiane Dates, and I have 2 children in the district, grade 4 and grade 6, and I also teach at Lenape 3rd grade in a co-taught setting. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the 4 proposed cuts of general education teachers. This hits close to home for me, as I have been a general education teacher at Lenape for the last 15 years, which means I've been able to experience teaching during both pre- and post-pandemic times. Our current 3rd grade students were in kindergarten in March of 2020. When our students returned in September of 2020, they were in 1st grade and learning through a computer screen until eventually we transitioned into cohorts and students returned to 2 days a week in masks 6 feet apart with plexiglass surrounding them. Carpets were removed, there was no sharing of materials, no collaboration time. And I don't know if everybody knows that. Our district was a little bit different than others, so it's important to know what our students faced and what our teachers faced. If you ask any elementary teacher what it was like to teach and make an impact during these conditions, it was difficult. Even last year, our carpets were still gone, we were socially distanced, and we were wearing masks for the majority of the year. Lengthy quarantines were also still happening. And I know that you all know this. We all know this, right? But my point is that these kids have experienced more disruption than we will ever understand during their most critical years, during their foundational years. And we are only just beginning to tackle the aftermath of this disruption. We are constantly having conversations of like, what can we do? How can we close these enormous gaps? We've never seen anything like it. They have unique needs. And I mean, our students are gathering for the first time on a carpet since kindergarten, and they're still learning to even work together. It's so much more than just academics. I mean, I can go on, the list can go on and on what we are seeing and what we are trying to help as far as these gaps go. I think we just need more time. We need more time. We need more individualized instruction and small group instruction, and smaller class sizes are going to help us achieve this. And I realize your data says that class sizes will likely stay the same, but there was no valid formula as to how these projections were created, so I don't know how they're considered valid. They also don't include, or they don't seem to include, the students in the self-contained classes, and these students need to be considered since they mainstream into the other sections for art, music, PE, and many of them also mainstream into our rooms for academics. So a class can easily go from 19 to 22, 23, depending on the time of day. I can also say that the last 15 years, the budget projections of class sizes are almost never accurate come September, and it's not usually because it's less. Things change. And I think that you should be questioning the class sizes. I think more work has to go into it. And we can't wait until August like usual. Things change, we wait till August, and we realize that class size numbers are too high, and we can't wait till August to save any of the 4 general ed teachers that are being cut. You will be cutting exceptional, invested teachers. These are not first-year teachers. A teacher who has already received tenure and has years of experience before even coming to New Paltz. And 3 other teachers, exceptional, one of which who is up for tenure this year and has invested many years in the district. I also want you to consider that one of the 4 general ed teachers being discussed holds our AIS math position at Lenape. She's worked wonders seeing many of the students. Her schedule is jam-packed, providing math support. So what will happen with that position or the sections if she's to be cut? I'm sorry, I'm almost done. I also noticed that both public comments are before the updated budget presentation on the agenda. Many of us noticed that, and I just want to say that it feels intentional, and it was definitely noticed, and I can't help but feel that if you really wanted us to feel heard, then the agenda would look a little different tonight. I also think there's been a lot of conversations on the urgency to adopt a budget at stake. It seems like we have more time. Maybe, I can't find the date of when it's supposed to happen. So many of us are up here asking question after question, even last week, and are we going to see answers? Like, when will we get answers? We don't even know if we have answers from last week because we haven't seen a presentation. So thank you for your time. I know it's not easy, hard decisions have to be made, but I really hope you'll consider holding on to some of these exceptional general education teachers. Thank you.
So we have about 15 minutes left of this public comment. I just wanted to make sure that we stick to the 3 minutes. Our next person is Christine Pallas.
Hi. I am here tonight to stress the importance of keeping all sections of elementary classes and retaining elementary teachers in the district, especially in light of the pandemic's continued impact on academic and social emotional needs. Yes, I'm one of the elementary teachers at risk of losing a job here, but this proposed cut would cause a ripple effect far beyond me. I am here tonight to advocate for the needs of our students, including my own son, who is a current 3rd grader in the district. I'm here to let you know that our children are struggling. As you are all well aware, Christiane just said most of what I was going to say about the pandemic. We all know about that. It just tainted the image of school as these kids knew it. And surely you remember how essential teachers were during this time. They were heroes. But things are not normal, and things have not been normal for a long time. As my colleagues mentioned last week, it's dangerous and concerning to use data from pre-pandemic times as we move into these post-pandemic years. Things might look normal or feel normal to you, but things are still not normal in our schools. Many of my general education students are struggling, and I urge you to look beyond projections as just a number. 18 pre-pandemic students in a class is not equivalent to 18 post-pandemic students. I watch them struggle not only with our general curriculum, but with the many foundational pieces that they're missing and they need to be successful. Things like handwriting, problem solving, having to work independently by themselves, and then having to learn to work with others. Anxiety and stress of expectations that they are just unable to meet right now. And these are only a fraction of the issues that are not portrayed when a simple number is projected on a screen. And we cannot ignore these issues. We cannot fail our students. So as we continue to work towards recovery and rebuilding, it is crucial that we prioritize the needs of our students and ensure that they receive the support and resources that they deserve to succeed, academically and mentally. Instead, it's being seen as a place to save money for the district. Keeping classes smaller than pre-pandemic times is absolutely in the best interest of our children, especially now. This is what they need and deserve. Retaining experienced elementary teachers is also critical now. You trusted us to navigate the endless challenges of remote and hybrid learning, and we did. We rose to the challenge time and time again with every obstacle thrown at us. We figured it out on the fly. Now these students need the expertise and skills of their teachers to provide the support and guidance that is needed to succeed and recover. We are in recovery. These are not just simple matters that will resolve themselves over time. Elementary teachers have a special job. We are with our students for the entirety of the day. We wear many hats, and we provide much needed stability and consistency in times of uncertainty. These are still times of uncertainty, helping students to feel supported and valued, much like our district social workers. So in light of all these factors, I really urge the board to prioritize the retention of highly qualified elementary teachers and to work to keep class sizes small in our district, smaller than pre-pandemic numbers. Investing in these areas will not only benefit our students, but will also help to support their academic needs while we continue to work to close the gap. So please reconsider the dangers of eliminating our students' most valuable resources, their teachers.
Thank you for your comment. The next person on our list, Joe Londa, hold on just a second, because your comment is about bus and policy, which is not on an agenda item for today. So I'm asking that you'll save your comment for the second public comment tonight.
Aren't buses part of the budget? They are part
Yeah,
of the budget.
okay. Then go for it. That's fine.
So my name is Joe Londa. I'm a homeowner in the town of New Paltz, husband and father of 2 adult children. I was a manager and executive for most of my 40 years in the technology field, challenged with the development and operations of complex systems. I'm not a transportation or facilities or education expert, but I do know about systems and the human process to create them and manage them. And I have observed, and so have Nobel Prize winning operations research, that humans are very good at trading off the future for the present. It's the reality of all the stresses we have to manage systems. My most recent role seems to be as a reluctant environmental activist, which I have little experience for. I didn't bring any super glue with me tonight to attach myself to artwork. Okay, no levity. All right, so I have 2 questions for the board. The first is that the 23-24 budget has, have you performed a financial and greenhouse gas emissions analysis regarding the purchase of the buses? 5 gas and diesel buses, which typically have a 15-year life period, versus leasing those same buses for 3, 4, or 5 years, which could potentially reduce the spending as well. Or inserting some number, like 1 EV bus and 1 DC charger to begin to get your feet wet on using EV buses. Or going even further and making them all EV buses, still keeping the spending level to the same level, and that would be the EV buses and DC charges. So that's the that's the primary question I have. The second question I have can be deferred, which is whether or not the school district will adopt a climate change action plan policy to become fossil fuel free and strive for a net zero electric cost. I understand that there is a process. I'm following that process to establish new policy. I've submitted the proposed policy, and I wait to hear how that process will work out to determine whether or not the board will go through in establishing that policy. The town and village municipality have also established a resolution to reduce greenhouse gases by 85%, and policy informs the future budgets and plans. It's consistent with the direction for electrifying all transportation as well as building electrification, and reduce the load, and the insertion of self-supply electric reduces the load on the grid and the expense, which we have approximately $1.3 million of fossil fuel and electric expense in the budget. That is the opportunity of savings by adopting a fossil fuel-free plan. There are other opportunities, such as possibly changing the school year, such as creating a living laboratory on energy and transportation that ties in with the STEM program. These are fields that are going to be with our children for a very long time, and we should exploit that. So in closing, if you are a climate denier, then I guess you get a pass on my questions. If you're not a denier, or rather, even if you are a denier, the question of the lease versus purchase is still a relevant question for you. If you're not a climate denier, then you understand what the impacts will be if we don't begin to act. We need to make changes in transportation and building, and it doesn't matter whether or not we're talking about individuals, municipalities, enterprises, and institutions. No one gets an exemption, and there's no real ability to delay, because all of it will affect us. It will mostly affect our children. They're the ones who will pay the price for our inaction to act on reducing greenhouse gases. So, my reason for being a reluctant activist is that I'd rather be involved in solving the problems as opposed to pointing out the problems. And I put my money where my mouth is. I will volunteer my time and my expertise to work with the board and the heads of your departments to pull together a plan. That plan is only meaningful if there's a policy behind it to act upon the plan, and which avoids questions like, why are we buying 5 more gas and diesel buses? That ties the two things together. Thank you for your time, and I hope we can discuss this during some part of the meeting.
Thank you for your comment. Next we have Deborah Fialco.
She just did. I just saw her.
She just took a phone
she took a phone
call.
call.
She'll be right back in.
Oh,
Okay. Randy Kaiser.
Hello, I'm Brandon Kaiser, New Paltz resident and teacher at Duzine, teach 2nd grade. And this information I'm reading tonight was compiled and written by Ginger King, who's also a New Paltz resident, and she's a 1st grade teacher though. And we can share this data with the board as well. But Ginger wanted you all to know that currently about 30% of the current 1st grade students require significant teacher intervention regarding behavioral needs. Significant teacher intervention regarding behavioral needs means that those identified students have behavioral needs that go beyond that of an average student. The time that is required to meet the behavioral needs of those students greatly impacts the productivity and the mental health of the entire class as a whole. It greatly impacts the teacher's ability to meet the academic needs of each student. So that means that on average, 25 to 30% of the students in each classroom currently require significant behavioral support. That data is significant, and increasing class sizes next year will further compound this issue. In addition to that, about 40% of 1st grade students require significant teacher intervention regarding academic needs. Significant teacher intervention regarding academic needs means that those students have academic needs that go beyond that of an average student. The time that is required to meet the academic needs of those students greatly impacts the entire class as well. Those are the numbers, and this is the real data. Oh, and about 3 of the 6 classrooms in 1st grade, that number is 50% or more of those students that require academic intervention. This data is significant, and increasing class sizes next year will further compound this issue as well. And in addition, what Christiane was saying, this does not include the self-contained classes that push in for academic services as well as all of our special areas. So that number increases for all of our special areas, library, and any academic times that they push in. So the numbers are actually higher when you include those classrooms. As you can see, 1st grade classrooms have exceptional needs. Those needs will continue on into 2nd grade. The 2nd grade teachers will have the same challenges in the fall with this particular cohort, but they will have an additional 3 to 4 students placed in their classrooms as well. Some of those 3 to 4 students will have exceptional behavioral and academic needs. As a result, the 2nd grade teachers are faced with a situation that is even more challenging than the one that the current 1st grade teachers find themselves in this school year, struggling to meet the behavioral and academic needs of our students. Based on this information, we would like to ask the superintendent and the members of the Board of Education to reconsider cutting one section of 2nd grade for the 2023-24 school year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Did Deborah come back? So
I prefer after the second calling, if possible, that's what I wrote down.
Yeah, okay. We have, Elaine's in, we have time for one more.
Okay, I'll be brief.
Okay.
I am Elaine Zinn. Hello, everybody. It's good to see you, and I hope in my heart that we can all come to a place where we look at the children and focus on them first. I've been an educator for 30 years. I've taught pre-K and K. That's it. That's all I've done. I've dedicated my life to these young beings, and to be honest, I have never seen a group of children who are so impacted by the stress of the environment, family struggles, monetary life is stressful. The children feel it. It's not only a pandemic situation, it's our culture, our society has changed in the 30 years that I've been teaching, and this particular year and last year, the kindergarten children are so needy. I don't walk down a hallway without hearing a screeching. Like they are like primal screams. They need to be listened to. They need to know that we are watching them. I have 18 children in my class this year. Many of them have speech delays, have emotional delays, and I don't know what we would do with larger class sizes, or even 18. 18 for 4 and 5-year-olds is a big number for somebody who's been teaching for as long as I have. It's like a circus some days. And I could juggle, and I could play it out, but we need to, they're watching us. They're our future, and it's our responsibility to be there for them. So thank you.
So there are 2 minutes left to public, or less than 2 minutes of public comment left, so I think we should not squeeze someone in and save the rest. There's 2 more that are on this list, and then we have the emails for second public comment. But rest assured, you'll be able to make your comments before we have our board discussion about budget, so we'll be able to listen to you before we go into discussion. So that brings us to the next portion of our meeting, which is the superintendent update.
Thank you. As usual, Julia stole all my thunder and talked about all the great things that are going on, but I'll recap. Footloose was awesome. Spring sports have started, and that's great too. If anybody gets bored, well, during this meeting, the Jazz Cabaret is going on down the hall. Now, personally, it's a personal choice. You do what you got to do. Great things are going on here. I really believe that. I know you know that, but I'm the new guy, and I continually am impressed with all the great things that are going on. I can't wait for the bird puppet show in pre-K tomorrow. Life is good. If you want to find out more about all the great stuff that's going on, I try to send out emails now and then, but the best way is our Facebook page and our new Instagram page. So if you're not following us, please follow us. And since we have all these teachers here, I will say to you again, if you want to promote your class, your program, send me a picture, send Carrie Ross a picture with a brief description. Make sure your children can be on the internet. We'll put them out there because it's important that people know all the great stuff that you're doing. Pre-K, we had an RFP that was due on the 27th of March to find if we can find an outside organization to run some pre-K programs. Is my time up?
Sorry, no.
Rebecca has done a fabulous job with pre-K. We believe, and this is a preliminary sort of teaser sort of thing because it's not definite yet, we're not ready to adopt it tonight, but we believe we're going to have an outside organization that's prepared to run three sections of pre-K next year. Cuisine, which would be a great boost to our community. So let's hope that comes to pass. No guarantees, but we're optimistic. NHS, there were 61 kids inducted into NHS. That's very impressive. And finally, Glenn was just telling me that the class of 1969 has a time capsule somewhere. And they were going to have a big event and open the time capsule before COVID, and it got scuttled like everything else did with COVID. So if there's anyone out there from the class of 1969 give us a call. We'd like to open your times capsule with you. So, that's my report.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the board committee reports. Heather, would you report out for REACT?
Sure. REACT met last Tuesday, 21st. My weeks mixed up. The biggest news of the evening was that the district is forming, or is in the process of forming, or I think it's already met, a district equity inclusion committee. And when we discussed that, members of REACT were invited to take part, assuming that they could make the scheduled times work for their schedules, and that was really appreciated by all in attendance. There's conversation about the sessions left with Due East and REACT. There are 3 meetings left, and the coordinators from Due East were looking for input from the committee as to how to best utilize that time. So anyone with ideas on that was going to send them forward. There was a great discussion over the role of students on REACT. In the past, students have been on the REACT committee. There are not any currently. And there was discussion about the role of students in the past, various ideas for students, were that to be re-implemented was discussed, and a plan was set to explore creating a description of the student role, and then the committee would review it at the next meeting. And ideas were shared for creating public forums with administration where parents can come and share concerns with the administration in order to build the community and resolve issues. The district is putting together the racial equity team, and then we began review of policy 3430, the anti-racism policy. There was discussion of the language in the initial policy as it exists in our district. And a DEI policy example from Schenectady City Schools was highlighted, and the committee started to discuss the 2 differences, and that conversation became very interesting and intense, and so we made some progress and then decided that everyone would read both policies and come back to the next meeting to continue that. And there was discussion of teacher retention policies in other school districts. Committee members were tasked with researching other districts, what they have on their websites, and using personal connections. There was some discussion of Kingston's policies with regards to teacher recruitment and support of staff of color through regular social and support events to build community. Ithaca's policies with regards to teacher recruitment were shared out, most notably nurturing student teachers to put down roots and stay within the district. So the committee thought, with SUNY so close by, this was something to look into. And then a few other ideas from websites were shared, and discussion of the Shenandoah district policies was included. Their website, the policies are amazing, but saying them in the district is the hardest part. This conversation will continue with committee members reviewing policy 6 to 11 around retention before the next REACT meeting, and then the organization of the materials that REACT is reviewing was discussed, and time was spent discussing a system that makes sense for everybody so that we can be organized with what we've looked at, the ideas that we're sharing, so that that can then go to the policy committee for further discussion. So it was a very productive meeting.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, now we have our policy committee report out, Glenn.
All right, so we went through quite a few policies. So these are all gonna be, well, not all of them, but most of them are gonna be up for your first read. Talked about some revenue, policy on revenue, that's gonna come up for a first read, it's in the agenda. We talked a lot about district investments. Went through that in pretty good detail. We asked Deb to take a look at that and send that to the district lawyers for review. After their input, that's gonna come back to the policy committee, and we'll send that'll come to the board for a first read. We talked about acceptance of gifts, grants, and bequests to the district. That's gonna come up for a first read. The district credit card use policy is a lot different than the policy we have. The Erie BOCES policy is different, so that's going for a first read. So go through that, we could discuss that. The same with the district cell phone policy. That'll come up for the first read. That's different than what we have, quite a bit different. There's a policy we're sending forward about reimbursement for meals and refreshments. Also school tax assessment, collection of property tax exemptions. I'll read through this carefully. There's a lot of new language. It combines, some old policies. some strange language about tax exemptions, so that's gonna probably take maybe 3 or 4 different reads, so, you know, you'll see that tonight. It's, some of the language is old. You know, read it carefully. Sale and disposal of district property is the same as the old policy, that's gonna come up. There's some different language in there about textbook disposal, so you probably should just, you know, to read through that one quick. Bonding employees, purchasing and competitive bidding and offering policy. So the new policy from Erie BOCE is not as complicated as the policy, you know, ours is not nearly as complicated as the BOCES policy. So you should read these two policies, give it a deep read. We like the old, we kind of like our policy, had a lot of New Paltz flair to it about buying stuff from approved vendors that didn't use, you know, we're not on any sort of government watch lists, you know, so just read through those policies. And also there was something about the procurement of goods and services that's coming to the board. And then there was another policy which kind of combined the old policy 5410, which was the purchasing and competitive bidding and offering, was about purchasing alternative formats for instructional materials. Should read through that. These are all coming up tonight for a first read, except the one I mentioned that was getting sent back to Deb and the district lawyers. That was the policy on district investments. Some light reading for you.
Thank you. Supervisor Rocco. Which brings us to policy review 9.1. We're at the second read of a handful of policies. Now I'm forgetting what we're doing. We're going through one at a time. Glenn is going to kind of give us an intro.
Which one are we starting with?
Start with 4220.
I think all of them but one have no changes.
Yeah.
742, which one are we at?
Says no changes. Administrative authority. 4220.
That's the administrative authority?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we've made 0 changes to this policy. Basically says we have administrators.
Do we have any discussion on this, or good to go? All right, I'm just gonna keep a list so that we can lump it all together. Okay, 4230.
District committee?
Also no changes, yeah.
Yep, we've made no changes to this policy. Just says that we have district committees that will report out.
Okay, any discussion?
No.
All right. That's 4230, so we've got 4240.
One with changes.
Yeah, this was the evaluation of the superintendent and other administrative staff. So some language we incorporated from policy 4260, which had to do with like,
We just basically merged the
Yeah,
Erie
we
policy
yeah,
and our
because-
4260.
yeah. So, I don't know, the policy committee, we recommend kind of adopting a policy with broader language. And we'd like to establish a process and protocol for the superintendent evaluation. Tighten it up a bit,
So it references a formal procedure that still
Yeah.
has to be developed.
with like steps along the way, with benchmarks and timeframes. So we kind of would like that to be added to the existing policy, to hold ourselves more accountable.
What is the date that's in that policy, no later than September 10th, guys?
Which we look at 42.
I think that's saying the evaluation has to be
4240.
posted
Yeah.
to the public by September 10th.
That's regulatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this eliminates, is it,
So what it's eliminating is what was in Erie, not what was in ours.
right, but, you know, like one thing it eliminated is, you know, like the superintendent will be granted the opportunity to respond to the evaluation in writing. Is that something we want to preserve?
You're saying that came out of the BOCE, out of the Erie policy?
Right,
Yeah.
that's scratched, but I don't
Yeah,
necessarily.
I think that was our thing, that this was, that we don't have something so formal that has all the steps, and that would be within those steps, that then would be
Yeah.
referenced in the policy. Because the Erie manual lays out some things that I don't know necessarily what we want, the board hasn't come up with a formal, really prescriptive step-by-step procedure. So the thought was that the policy would refer back to a formal
Got it.
procedure that's posted to the
Yeah,
website.
we don't wanna just pass the policy for the sake of passing a policy. We think that we should probably attach to that policy some guidelines as process and steps.
Okay, but that would need time to develop that.
That would be time to
Would
develop
that
that.
be a retreat, or would that be,
What's that?
would that be a retreat, or would that be work done?
Board retreat would be great.
We probably should do that, because the evaluation got,
But we have an email, in our email from Steve about a retreat, so I think he said April 27th.
That's it, I think it's scheduled.
So if we wanna work it into that or a separate one.
Yeah, so let's work it into a retreat, so let's,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this, because I think those are two separate things, we might be able to do this after a board meeting at a,
Yeah.
retreat time.
so after the retreat, we'll see where we are with that, and I can come back up. And then we can discuss that after we have the retreat.
Okay.
So those policies should be tabled until after the retreat. Does that make sense, Sandy?
Yes.
Table on this policy.
4240. We want to have a board retreat so the board can talk about adding a process for that. So we're not gonna vote on that one tonight.
Okay. Any other discussion on this one? Okay, so we have 4310. This
Yep.
is the,
Superintendent of schools policy.
no changes.
I just have a quick comment. I know when I was on the policy committee a few years ago, we tried to word things like, with, instead of like he or she, using the word
Yes.
they.
Yep. We talked about.
Did you guys talk about that?
Yeah.
Because, and you what?
Yeah. we
Yeah,
can-
well, I mean, I'm just saying the policy here says he or she.
Well, we could.
They are responsible.
Wait, are you talking, is this?
I'm talking about 40, the one where
4310.
4310, but I mean,
Yeah, so then that's a change we should make right here if we want to pass that policy.
Yeah.
As I say, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
just-
replace all
just-
uses of he or she with
1,000%
they.
agree with you. We've changed as we've gone through a lot of that.
that's what we've done, we were
Yeah.
doing too at one
Yeah.
point.
So
and
let's just
I don't
make
know
sure
where
we
left
slow
off,
down and
but-
make sure that Sandy can make the changes.
Yeah.
So Sandy, do you see?
I see it on the
They are
first line,
responsible to
it'll
the
say
board.
they are responsible.
Mhm.
Is there anywhere else?
In the third line, he or
Yeah.
she,
They
they
will.
are responsible to the board
And then
in
before
their stewardship of the entire district.
And then as chief executive officer, they will.
They will, yeah.
All right. I got line 1, line 3, line 5, right?
In bullet A, when his or her, which we listed today.
That'll be their employment.
Their employment contract.
G, letter G as well.
Their written and spoken statement.
I think that's it by my count, but.
Yeah, I think so,
I'd like a
too.
second
That's
set of
all I'm
eyes to
seeing.
confirm.
That works for me. Any other discussion on this?
As amended.
Okay, so, the next one is 4320. Superintendent board relations.
We have not made any changes to this policy.
I'm just standing for he or she. Okay, any discussion?
Nope.
5110, budget planning and development.
So, this is a very complex policy. So, we like how the Erie manual has restructured our old policies. So, basically, we had our policy as it stands is broken into 5110, 5120, and 5130. It's broken into 3 different policies. And the Erie manual breaks that out even further into that you should all, you know, give, I mean, you read it once. You might need to give it a second read. So it's important that we kind of take a look at that, you know, because it is complex. So my personal feeling is that the new policy has broken into, and the committee agreed, that it's much easier to understand with the 5 policies. But I think it's important that the board really dig into that and read it and understand it before we pass this policy. Bianca and Heather, do you agree?
I like the way it broke them out. It's more in depth, it's more, like you said, it's clear. It's not that it's necessarily saying anything different, it's just broken out and fleshed out more. Yeah, there's more information.
I mean, as we look at each policy, we're pulling up the current policy on the website, and then we're looking at the new policy, and then we're sort of determining where the changes are. And so some we are referring some of the older policies, but a lot of them really are laid out in a way that makes a lot of sense.
So that's the same, so if you look at some of the other policies that are up first, you know, to read. You know, 5130, the budget adoption is part of that, and the 5140, those are broken out. Those are the policies as they are, kind of broken out. And the contingency budget.
So it's not that it's materially different.
No, it's just, it's not, instead of being 20
more
pages,
a lot
it's
more information.
5 policies of 2.
So this includes 5110, 5120, 5130, 5140, and 5150.
Yes.
Okay.
So it takes our policies and breaks, and then adds the 5140 and the 5150.
Okay.
So it pulls some stuff from our old policy, and then it breaks it out into its own policy. So it takes our policy and roughly our 3 policies of 5110, 5120, 5130, and breaks it into 5 separate policies, which are easier to understand.
So you're saying, in addition to the second read, we should still take this back and
Unless
really give it
people have
a...
read it and they're comfortable with it. I mean, it's a second read, so I don't know if people have had the chance to read it, but.
I've read through them already, I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
likewise.
straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think, well, personally, I don't think I need the third read.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I'm fine with this too.
I'm okay.
Okay. So that's the last one. Is there any other discussion on that one, on those 5? Okay, then we have 7420, which is sports and athletic program.
This is the athletic policy about testing up. We can play on varsity sports. We talked about it in detail. We talked about it in the policy committee. We actually talked about it about probably 4 meetings ago. We discussed it in public for about 15 minutes. And we recommend that we like the policy as we have it now. And we recommend adopting the same policy we have.
Well, so to be clear, so you just said testing up for varsity.
We recommend the current policy we have and not changing the way our kids test up.
Right,
Right.
yeah. So I just want to clarify, because
We merged some of the old policy
Right.
area and then changed it for gender neutral language.
Yeah.
We changed some of the stuff.
As I say, yeah, right, nothing's changing. 7th and 8th graders can test up to JV.
Yes. Well, the crux that's come up in public was, should we allow 7th or 8th graders to play varsity sports? Should they be allowed to test up and play on a varsity sport? And that happens in our current policy if we do not have a modified program. But if a modified program is in place, then the 7th graders have to play on a modified program, and the 8th graders could test up. After having a year on modified, they could test up to JV. But we didn't
If no
change.
JV, then they can go.
Yeah, we
Then they
didn't
can go,
change
yeah.
that policy.
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving that as is.
Mhm. Everyone good?
That's
Okay.
what I'm clarifying.
Page 2.
Of that policy?
Yep,
Okay.
booster clubs, first line,
Where's that?
Page 2.
to ensure all student programs.
To ensure programs are provided with.
Or just take out, just say.
Where are
okay.
you, Sandy?
Oh,
On
it
what
just
page?
says
Oh,
to
okay.
ensure.
I see a
programs
cross
are
out, I
provided.
wasn't sure if anything got.
Oh, this just said on the
inserted.
town line, ensure,
It was just to make it.
provide with equivalent benefits, treatments, services, and opportunity regardless of their source. When determining equivalency there, okay.
Good.
Well, the only booster club that's recognized by the district is the New Paltz Athletic Association.
But we just, Teresa, the only thing that was changed was just taking out, it said that boys and girls programs, the boys and girls
Oh.
programs
So
taken
now-
out.
Right,
That's the only
and
change.
I'm just asking if it was gonna be all student.
It should be to ensure all student programs are provided with, yeah. I don't, yeah.
So is it all student or is it just ensure programs?
To
are
ensure
provided?
programs.
Yeah, short programs, yeah, as it is,
Oh,
but it's
okay.
scratched out, yeah.
That's fine, either or.
Not no all student.
I think you can just say program.
To
Yeah.
ensure programs are provided with,
Program
right,
it.
program.
You're good with that, Sandy? You got that?
To ensure
Okay.
programs, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Okay, so, I have all but 5240. Should be, going through and, so I forget the wording that we had last time. We are just, saying we're adopting policy 4220, 4230, 4310 with the adjusted pronouns 4320, 5110, 5120, 5130, 5140, 5150, 7420.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for that hard work, guys.
Yes, thank
Make
you.
sure everybody gets the first read on those other policies.
Yeah, I
Yes.
see them. There's a whole bunch of them, right?
Okay, so we're good with policies. First read, right, where you just said that, and that brings us to the acceptance of the minutes of the last meeting. We have, I have a motion to accept the minutes for the business meeting of March 15th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, 11.1, the treasurer's reports. I have a motion to accept the reports for February 2023.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I have a question on,
Oh.
for Deb. So, I know I keep bringing this up, Deb, but the cash balances for the clubs, you know, I see there's a lot in the varsity baseball and there's some in softball and lacrosse. I mean, this money should be going to the students, you know, I mean, it should be withdrawn by the coaches and used for the students on their teams. The varsity baseball and varsity softball just had a huge fundraiser. And I'm happy to report they raised a lot of money, which they, from my understanding, want to use for a batting cage, which I think is in the area of like $15,000. But, you know, in the varsity baseball account, which some of that money was placed in there as a donation by the New Paltz Baseball and Softball Association. I know that because I encouraged them to make that donation. So there's quite a lot of this, you know, for $3,500 in there. And I think softball has like 600. So how would the coaches
get that money?
I've
Because,
been in contact with Greg
okay,
about the list of the sports that have money in these accounts.
okay,
And we're gonna work through getting this money to.
okay, good, because I just, yeah, this is, because it's been sitting here for a while, and, you know, my husband and a few other people are doing lacrosse, and they didn't even know about this money, but they need to, you know, it's helpful, because then that's less fundraising that teams have to do for, you know, equipment and, you know, special clothing, you know, whatever they fundraise for. So, yeah, that's good, okay, just as long as you and Greg are, you know, working together on that, that's fantastic. Okay, great. That's all I have. Yeah.
Thanks, Teresa. That brings us to the personnel consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve items 13.1 through 15.6?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
And 16.1, can I have approval of the Committee on Special Education Recommendations and Student Placements?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This brings us to new business. We have item 17.1, which is a change to the criteria of Student Scholarship Award, Nichols Health and Nutrition Scholarship. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you to them for that nice award.
Thank you. And 17.2, can I have a motion to accept the donation from the New Paltz Central School District Foundation for Student Enhancement? This is for $1,229.01 for Lenape Elementary School to be used to fund the Lenape garden renovation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have,
Can I make a comment before public comment? I just want to respond. You can put me down 3 minutes, I won't take that long. I just want to comment on one of the questions that was asked. So Christiane, you're asking about why the final public session is where it is. So this is our 3rd board meeting where we've had a discussion on the budget. And we pretty much arbitrarily put the budget presentations at the end. So for all 3 of them, this is how it's been done. We've had our meeting, we always have a public participation in the beginning, public comment in the end, and then we've been doing the budget presentation. But for the last one, which was a budget forum, we did it in a different format because it was a required budget forum. So that's why we put it that way. Honestly, I would think that the public would want to have their say before decisions are made rather than after. But I'll leave it to the board. I mean, I have no, nothing nefarious was intended. But if the board would like to move this public comment session to after the budget presentation, that is your prerogative.
Well, we have the budget now, so.
You do indeed. We'll keep it.
Well, we have one more.
we have one more.
No, let's get through this last.
Yeah, that's okay.
So excited. Sorry.
Item 17.3, can I have the acceptance of the donation for the New Paltz Central School District Foundation for Student Enhancement? This one is for $2,079 and is for the New Paltz High School to be used to purchase new printers for the art department.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right now.
Do you wish to keep your public comment now, or would you like to move it to after?
I would much rather hear people before we have our discussion.
Agreed.
That's my personal opinion.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to the second public comment. We have two more people on our list. We'll do the same setup. We have 30 minutes, and then once the in-person comments are over, I'll move to the emailed in comments. So we have Deborah Fialco.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Fialco. I've been a New Paltz resident since 1984. I've had children, grandchildren, and now I have great-grands in this district. My question to the board is this. Have you all ever walk through the schools and join the classes to see what is going on in the classes and to see and understand their needs. Have any of you ever did that?
We're not, we're just supposed to be.
I'm talking to the board.
Okay.
So if you have, why is it that you think it's okay to get rid of some of these teachers, some of these social workers? I voted for you all to protect the children, to protect our children's education. Personally, I don't think you're doing a good job. You want to put the weight on past administration. I don't think you are doing a good job. And my opinion is this. All of the New Paltz Central Board, New Paltz Central School District Board members should be fired. That's my opinion. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment. We have our last person for in-person public comment, which is Paulette Easter.
Good evening, my name is Paulette Easterlin, and I am a 5th grade teacher at Lenape Elementary, as well as a proud president of New Paltz United Teachers. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you. Previously, impact and intention when considering the reductions being proposed in the 2023-2024 school district budget. Tonight, I would like to acknowledge that the decisions and actions that you will make tonight are important on so many levels. It will not only impact our students, but it will be a sign as to your and our priorities and commitment to the community of New Paltz. Were you aware that the New Paltz Policy 4212, New Paltz organizational chart, has our district at 22 and not 11 or not 16 administrator or director positions. Being privy to collaboration with other surrounding districts, this is seen as being very high or very top-heavy administratively. With that being said, since we propose to have a shared vision and mission as a district, why is there seemingly not a shared burden? Can we consider and prioritize what we really need, which are expert teachers, versus what we want, like $100,000 in phone upgrades? The proposed budget significantly reduces the staffing and positions that directly impact students. We have prided ourselves as being a district committed to excellence. However, the pandemic has had a profound effect on student achievement and social emotional beings. We cannot assume that the ripple effects from COVID are over. The thing that has been unchanged in is our commitment to excellence. And we have witnessed teachers pivoting back and forth from distant learning, hybrid, and in-person. In spite of all this, we have been there. The proposed teacher staffing reductions will potentially impact students negatively and threaten to disrupt our positive gains and environment. I want to reference a resolution that the Board of Ed made in June 19th, 2019. And even though those circumstances were different or are not our state of affairs right now, those promises and those sentiments that were made by the board are still relevant. Those sentiments of having a willingness to enter into collaborative problem solving. So I leave you with this. All hands on deck. We need all of us to be ready to make sacrifices for our students and for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So that concludes the in-person portion, and I have 2 emails. And this one is mostly from the group, right? Okay, so we have 2 comments. We have one from Sarah Shepard. Dear Mr. Grotto, members of the board, I wear many hats as a stakeholder in this community. I am a 2nd grade teacher at Duzine, but I am writing as a concerned tax-paying parent of a rising 3rd grader and an incoming kindergartner in this district. When COVID lockdown occurred in March 2020, my older child was 5 years old and my youngest had not yet turned 2. I'm distressed by the class size increase in the proposed budget. My now 8-year-old has been lucky to move through Duzine K-2 with a class size under 18. A small class size laid the foundation for meaningful relationships between students, teachers, and families. Children need connection to feel successful. While my 8-year-old has some gaps in skill acquisition, he has thrived because of the access he has had to his teachers and the time they were able to spend with him. Not only were his teachers able to deeply know the children, but they had the capacity to build strong relationships with families. The pandemic has been extremely dysregulating for families, and the smaller caseload made it manageable for teachers to partner with caregivers to give specialized support. Still, 2nd grade teachers are struggling to multitask, attempting to address social, emotional, and academic needs of their students and families. It has not been easy, but a lower class size makes it manageable. I'm certain that the commitment to low class size for my 2nd graders cohort is a major factor in his emotional, social, and academic success. Currently, my now preschooler has 11 children in his class with the support of 2 teachers. When I told one of his teachers about the BOE's proposed cuts in the class size increase for Duzine's kindergarten, she said, "What? Impossible." Managing big feelings, learning impulse control, using words to communicate feelings, reading social cues, and using the bathroom independently are just some of the goals for incoming kindergartners. There have been significant delays in these behaviors due to the pandemic, and preschool teachers are working their hardest to help the recovery process. However, they have few resources to do the healing work that's needed. In fact, preschoolers enrolled in Head Start programs were just relieved of the mask mandate in January 2023. That's right, just about 4 months ago. Learning letters, sounds, and reading social cues have been compromised for nearly their entire early childhood thus far. If this is the case for preschool, how do we imagine that these soon-to-be kindergartners will thrive at Duzine? With the proposed budget, we would be nearly doubling the amount of children in the classroom from what they are currently used to, with 1 teacher for them to adhere to. Where is the logic here? There is deeply ingrained stress from the pandemic, stress on families, stress on teachers, stress on the district, stress on the children, stress on the tiniest children. I'm urging you to look into reducing administrative positions that do not directly impact our students and their families' ability to form necessary relationships with their peers and teachers before cutting teachers. Teachers are the lifeline. Sincerely, Sarah Shepard. This one is longer. I don't think I'll be able to read it fast enough to get through the whole thing. This is from Tara Crowder.
Are there copies out?
These will be left out in a folder for anyone to look afterwards. Dear members of the Board of Education in the New Paltz community, my name is Tara Crowder and I'm a teacher at Lenape Elementary School. I am also a parent of 2 students in the district, one who is in 2nd grade and the other who is in 4th grade. In addition to having taught for the past 10 years, 7 of which have been in this district, I have a background in both leadership development and organizational effectiveness. I'm here to remind all the educational stakeholders that our jobs are to serve and to protect the needs of students. And in this light, I'm here to remind you that what exists in theory very seldom matches what manifests in practice. The educators and staff members that are present at this BOE meeting have lived the theory that is undergirding the proposed approach to solving the fiscal crisis that the district is facing. These professionals have lived through similar theoretical approaches in the past and have witnessed the damaging and long-lasting effects of these approaches to students' educational, emotional, and social well-being. There are a myriad of factors involved with reducing class sizes and reducing the special education support of our most vulnerable students. These factors are what play out empirically once decisions like these are made. These are also the factors that the professionals in this district can speak to from being part of the historical tapestry of this system. Unless you are weighing the voices of those who are in the trenches each day, at least equally to those who are operating in theory, you will fail to understand the scope of implications that will result from student learning and well-being, for student learning and well-being. The only theory that should be wholeheartedly embraced by any educational stakeholder in our district is the shared understanding that we are all accountable to serving the needs of students. Just by the essence of occupying a role in the system are we held to that standard, as the system exists solely for that purpose. Therefore, any decisions that are made without unprofessional and inappropriate. On behalf of the professional staff that serve our students in the district, I would also like to point out to you that the great majority of these individuals who have steadily served the needs of students despite historically driven hardships that have been consistently present due to the lack of competence and professionalism of district leadership. The degree to which students' needs have been met historically in this district is almost entirely due to the dedication and self-sacrifice of its teaching professionals and building staff. These professionals have consistently lacked adequate resources, sufficient training, effective day-to-day systems, and nearly every other support that should be in place to enable them to optimally meet the needs of students. Despite this egregious void of sufficient materials, training, and any semblance of a viable system of aligning and optimizing student learning, the professionals who are in the trenches each day with their students have filled these gaping holes with their own money, time, energy, and resources. They have even consistently stepped into leadership roles to enable initiatives to happen that would support students. It is now these same individuals who are being sacrificed in an effort to triage the gaping financial wound that this district is now enduring due to past administrative errors. The rest of this letter is available in the folder. We'll put it.
And we've all received it and we've read it prior to the meeting as well.
Yes. And the last letter we have, we had an email from Joseph Landa, and he already made a public comment, so I will put this in the folder as well for anyone to read as needed. Okay. This brings us to the third budget presentation.
I count 4.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Time for another budget presentation. Thank you for coming once again. We do appreciate all of your comments. We really do. I think the board has done a great job of listening to your concerns. And I'm just going to address one concern, Elaine. I feel like the situation is difficult, and I want you to know that I feel, I believe I'm speaking and saying that the board does focus on children first, and that's our goal, is to do what we need to do. But we're in a difficult situation, and if we don't balance a budget, we can't have school. So that's why this is such a difficult situation. Shout out to Footloose once again.
So you want to put out these copies?
I do, sure do. Many of you have already found the budget presentation. We felt like you were having trouble seeing the fine print, so we tried to address that issue. So here are paper copies if anybody wants one, and I see many of you have already found the email sent out, so hopefully you can see. So if you want to pass those out, thank you. I have a remote clicker this time. Of course, what do you think, Keith? Should I? I'm glad Keith is here tonight. Hit the big green circle. I'm just not pointing. No. Oh, there. All right. Thank you. All right. So the goal for tonight is to adopt the budget. Does it have to be done tonight? No, it does not. But time is of the essence. This has been a very challenging budget. As I've stated every time I've had the chance. It is important to know that the state does not give us the amount of money that we need. And since it does not give us the amount of money that we need, the taxpayers are on the hook for about 70%. Where do you want me to stand? Is this a good spot?
Perfect.
For about 70%. So thank you, taxpayers. We realize that we rely upon you very heavily. New York State says we can have a 2% tax cap, but they don't really mean it, because sometimes it's 2%, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. If it is only a mere 1.23%, then you really can't take as much money from the community as you need, because we all know the cost of everything is going up by more than 1.23%. This is our actual tax levy for the last few years, tax cap for the last few years. And perhaps you'll notice that this is the lowest it's been over the last few years, other than 2 times, one when it was 1.22 and one when it was negative. And if you think that makes sense, it doesn't, that you can have a 2% tax cap that is negative. But that happens. If you want to look at the revenue that we have gotten from the taxpayers, the tax levy, obviously it goes up a little bit each year, even though the tax rate might go down, or the tax cap might be down. The fact that you're increasing a tax levy that was bigger the year before will go up anyway. So it's going to keep going up. What we're proposing is a slight increase over last year. And we're not proposing it. That's what the state says we can do. So, bottom line, and I've said it before, no matter how you slice it, no matter how you look at this, we're short $5 million. So we have to make that up. So how do you balance a budget in a responsible, fiscally responsible way that looks out for the programs and the children? It's hard to do. If it were easy, we'd be done by now. And there's no way around it. There are real people involved, and you're not going to balance this budget by cutting pencils and erasers and magic markers. People cost the most. Yes, sir. How's that? All right. Moving on. So, all right. So we're sorry that this involves real people, but we have to balance the budget. All right. So let's look at student enrollment, because that seems to be the topic of the day. It is where we are most concerned. If you look at the student enrollment, it was 2,240 back in 2017, 2018. It is now 1,757 this year, projected to be smaller next year. Now, somebody said, well, are these projections correct? Well, we don't know if they're correct, but we're doing the best we can. Faculty and staff. Back in 2017, 2018, there was 167 teachers. Well, I'll say input members, because I guess there were teachers' aides in here at some point, and nurses count here as well. And now we're up to 214. Administrative staff was 16, went up to 18, it's down to 16.6 now, and with our proposed administrative cut, it would be 16 next year. So, simple enough, faculty and staff is going up, student enrollment is going down, administration is staying the same. So, question number 1, and I've gotten lots of questions, so I'm just summarizing for you. If we cut 4 special education teachers, how will we educate our students? I want you to know that we didn't make this stuff up. This is an analysis done by our special education director, looking at all of the needs. And the needs change from year to year, and the kids change from year to year. So based on our evaluation, there are programs that are not needed. There are programs that are new programs, and there's a couple new ones here, and some that are eliminated. So if you look at your elementary staffing needs for special education for next year, we need 2 less teachers in the elementary. Middle school is a little more complicated, because you're not talking a teacher, you're talking pieces of teachers, sections that you offer. So we've gone through and we've looked at each of the programs that we're offering and looked at how many sections it is, what portion of a full-time person it is, and when you get down to it, you had 13 that you need this year. Next year, you'll need 2 less. Special ed is very hard to estimate. Things change. These numbers could go up. These numbers could go down. We've got to use the best data that we have to make decisions. But it's important to realize that special ed law requires that any student with an IEP, their services must be met. So I've had parents write to me and say, you're not going to be able to meet my child's IEP. And the answer is, yes, we will, because we have to. That's the law. So your services will be provided. Another frequently asked question, how can you cut for elementary teachers? Won't that affect the class size? Good question. And I've shown you this chart. Things change over the summer. Maybe more kids will show up. Maybe more kids will leave. We don't know. We don't know. But our best guess is that the numbers next year will be roughly the same as this year. And so, if you were to reduce first grade from 6 sections to 5, the average size would go from 16.3 to 17. If you were to reduce second grade from 6 sections to 5, the number would go from 17.8 to 19.6. And you can read the rest. And anybody who's out there watching this, you've got this in your email as well, so you can follow along also. There's a different way to look at it. If you don't make these changes, if you don't cut these sections, first grade class will be about 14. Second grade class will be about 16, third grade class about 15, and fifth grade class about 17. Would we like them to be those numbers? Sure, that'd be great. I think it's better for the students if you have smaller class sizes. The question is, can you justify it when you're in a $5 million hole? Question 3, what effect will cutting a language teacher have on instruction? Now, last time I was here, I said I think we can cut a language teacher, but I need to get you more information. So we've looked at the numbers, we've talked to the building principals, and you have some choices here. If you eliminate 5 sections of Spanish in the high school, you can still offer all the same courses. However, class sizes will get a bit bigger because they're small now at the upper levels. More importantly than the class size is probably the fact that you'll have more trouble scheduling things because you have less sections to have available to students. So you could eliminate a Spanish teacher in the high school. You could eliminate language instruction in the elementary. Elementary language is not required, but it's a great thing to have. You could try to do a combination of the two, which is hard because then you have a teacher from Lenape running over to the high school. That's difficult, but you could do that. You could probably eliminate 3rd and 4th grade language and still make your class sizes in the high school a little smaller and still have 5th grade language. Or you could not do any of those things and not eliminate a language teacher. So based on what I've heard during our discussions, well, I don't want to say what I think. We'll see what happens. We'll see what your opinions are. But we've made some changes to our proposal as far as language goes. All right. Sorry for the fine print, but that's why you've got your charts. So, Paulette held up a nice chart that said there are 22 people on the org chart. True story. There are 22 people. The question is, are they administrators? And we had a lot of conversations, my people in my office discussing how do you define an administrator. So we define it anybody who's got an administrative certification. If you want to define it differently, feel free to do that, but that's what this chart is all about. And it lists the 16 people that have administrative certification. It doesn't include directors such as transportation director, facilities director. So, can cuts be made to administration? The answer is, they can. I'm not recommending that at this time. I know that that's a topic of conversation definitely for next year because one of our administrative positions are in the ARP. But could you eliminate one this year? Yes, you could. and we would have to figure out a way to cover it. This is not a recommendation I'm making. These are the recommendations I'm making. And you've seen this before. If you do all of these things, you save $2.8 million. However, we had a board meeting, budget forum I should say, last time, and the people spoke passionately, as they did tonight, about the need for certain positions. And so the board listened to you, and they expressed the need, the desire to keep 3 social workers who were going to be eliminated. Okay? So they make the decisions, and I find a way, my group and I find a way to make it happen. So here's how I would keep 3 additional social workers. Here's how I recommend to you that we do it. I recommend that they all remain in the American Recovery Plan where they are now. But in order for them to stay, we've got to take out some money. So $325,000 is what we're looking for. We have quite a lot of money allotted for AIS, after school AIS. We have some during the day AIS. Our thoughts here were that AIS really shouldn't be after school. Students who need extra help shouldn't have to stay after school to get it. And in fact, we allocated a lot of money for this and we spent very, very little. Here's the most important thing. We got to spend this ARP money, because anything we don't spend by September of next year is money that's lost. So I'm sure we're all on the same page with the fact that it's got to be spent. So to have a lot of money in AIS and we're spending it at a very slow rate is not a good idea. So I would recommend that you cut a lot of money out of after school AIS, leaving some, because we support the idea of homework clubs or tutoring services, and we're happy to pay teachers to do that. But we got to spend this money. So if you can take this money and put it toward social workers, I think that is the thing to do. We have allocated a substance abuse counselor. We never hired one. I wouldn't hire one now, because you could be losing this money soon, but you have $60,000 there. Last time we talked about eliminating Astor, so that we could keep social workers. In conversations with Astor, they can still provide most of the same services they're providing now for a lot less money, because they charge insurance for their services. If we took away all the money, they wouldn't bother putting a satellite Astor program here, but if we keep $60,000 worth of services, we can keep them. So therefore, we're recommending $90,000 reduction from Astor. Add it all up, and we can keep your 3 social workers, as you requested, in the ARP budget for 1 more year. Next year, we'll do this all over again. Okay, so at this point, we need $1,855,000 to balance the budget. Last year, we put in $1.9 million. Ms. Thompson spoke to me the other day. She says, how come you're comfortable putting in $1.9 million? Earlier, you only wanted to put in $1 million. The answer is, I'm not comfortable. I don't like deficit spending. I don't like spending money we don't have. That is a large number, and we'll do what we need to do, but I hope you all look at that and say, boy, I wish we weren't spending that much of our savings. It's not a good practice in your home. It's not a good practice here either. However, if you want to bring the language position back, which maybe you do, maybe you don't, then you have to figure out how to pay for the language position. So, here are the 2 options that I would give you for an approved budget. Now you can reject both, you can accept one, you can mix and match. I'm sure we can figure out any alignment you want. But if you'd like the opinion of myself and my business official and our executive deputy, you would follow number 1, which is keep your tax cap at 1.23%. Pay for your 3 social workers out of ARP or CRRSA. We still have a little bit of money there we can spend. Move your language position to ARP. In order to do that, you have to find more money. There are administrative costs that are part of CRRSA. And we can reduce those by $36,000, and basically it's a reimbursement for running the whole thing. Reduce that. There is a enrichment summer school that serves about 57 kids in the summer. And the cost of that is, it was 120 or so. And so we recommend you reduce that by about half. We think it can be still run in a good manner, if we run it more efficiently. Might be some reductions. And we could reduce the phone system upgrades by $32,000. And then you would use $1.9 million of fund balance, which again is more than we want to. But we've made some drastic cuts this year, and I don't think we can go a lot farther. So tax levy would be $47,620, $47,620,238, and that is what is allowable by New York State law for our school with a tax cap of 1.23% for this year. Option number one. However, there was certainly some discussion at the last board meeting about exceeding the tax cap and going to a 3.36% increase. So we've mapped that out for you as well. You could go in this direction. You could raise the tax cap, bring in another $1 million from the taxpayers. I would say that you should still spend your $325,000 on social workers from ARP because you got to spend it. You could then pay for your foreign language position for $122,000, which would save these adjustments here. You wouldn't have to do those things. And then there's the district office, the former district office on Main Street. We haven't talked about how to solve that problem. I will tell you that our architect has given us 2 quotes. One quote is to make the building disappear and replace it with parking. That was about $475,000. And the other option to build it back was in the neighborhood of $2.4 million. So if you want to address that issue, and you exceeded the tax cap, you would have $500,000 to do that. You can't rebuild it for $500,000, which could happen. And then you could use less fund balance. Instead of 1.9, you could be down around 1.5. So your tax levy would be $1 million more. Remember a moment ago it was $47 million. This would make it $48 million. But you need to think about these things before you make your decisions. Next year all your federal money's gone. So we have a lot to discuss. 3 social workers, 1 foreign language teacher, 1 director of elementary instruction, pre-K teacher and an aide, Astor, and your elementary enrichment. Might be a couple other things too, but these are the big ticket items. So next year is not going to be any better than this year. Another thing to think about. If you go with option 2, you are exceeding the tax cap. Therefore, you must have a supermajority to pass it. You must have 60% of the voters agree to this. And if they don't agree to it at 60%, then you have one more chance to put up a responsible budget that people will vote for. And you got to get that one to work, because if that one doesn't work, then you have a contingent budget, which would be fairly catastrophic. So I encourage you to discuss and adopt a budget. I'm going to stand here and show you any slides you want to see.
Thanks, Steve.
Can
we ask questions?
No, we had the forum last meeting was a community forum, and that was where there was back and forth.
Well, there is new
I'm gonna
information being
address you in my thing.
There's no
listen.
there's no back and forth.
No, there's no back and forth, but I'm gonna address some of his
The
concerns.
public can watch the meeting, and the board
Right.
is deliberating.
Steve, I have a question about some of the special ed numbers.
Sure.
So the point was raised about self-contained classes pushing into general ed classes.
Yes.
How, with the increase in numbers, how will that be supported? If there's, the class sizes, according to the numbers, are not increasing significantly. But if you do have a class size of 21 students and you have several self-contained classes with 8 students, and let's say 4 of them are pushing into a class, that brings the number up to 24, 25. What's in place to support that? Because that's a point that I just, I hadn't thought about that, and that really resonates.
Right. Well, the self-contained students have a different program to go through too much of the day. But
They do,
sometimes
but I
push
mean,
in.
they do push in, and I mean, so I'm just wondering how that's going to be supported.
Exactly how it was expressed by the concerned citizens here. If you have a self-contained class part of the day, they will not be in the regular classroom, so these class numbers are correct. And at certain points in the day, they will be in the room, so the class size will be larger.
And why, there's nothing noted under the MSR line? Special ed, the multi-sensory reading?
Oh, where is that?
It was under the projections, the special ed number projections.
I don't know the answer to that.
If you go, I think you have to go up to the elementary.
Know the answer to that, Liz?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
So under the number of students, under MSR, there's no numbers there.
No, because they would fluctuate based on student need.
So who would provide that if there's not a teacher there?
There is a teacher there in MSR. Yeah.
There's no number.
Yeah, on the slide, there's no numbers.
And I apologize for not asking or submitting that question earlier, I didn't notice that.
So I guess I don't understand. There's no numbers there, but the position is still there.
So it says MSR, but there's no, I don't see, so there is a teacher that's
Yes.
assigned that position
Yes.
each, okay, that's what you're saying. And my other question is, with this summer program, reduction, see, with the summer school reduction, you're saying that the same number of students could be served with more efficient spending, or the number of students being served be less?
I'm saying that we would be giving the program a budget, and we would then have to find a way to do the best we can with that budget. It might be fewer staff members, it might be less time.
So you said you wouldn't recommend it, but an admin cut could be there. What dollar amount would we attach to that?
Well, if you were to say I had to cut an administrator, we would have to go back and decide exactly what that looked like. But I would say you could lower your fund balance, have to get an extra 160,000 perhaps. Keep in mind that doesn't just include, all these numbers don't just include salary, they include salary and benefits and retirement.
I had another special ed question. On the second grade ICT for this year, or for projected for 23-24, it says 9 to 13 students, and it's going from 3 to 2 sections. But 9 to 13 is a pretty big span. So if we currently have 13 students and 3 sections, and we could have 13 next year, what is the thinking behind going from 3 to 2?
You have to go from the previous year.
I am, yeah, so the previous year there was 13, and then the following year is projected 9 to 13, which is a pretty significant range. So you're possibly looking at 13 with one less section. So you're possibly looking at the same amount of students we have this year with one less section.
Yes, you're right. 13 divided by 3 would give you 3 or 4, and this one would give you a little more, so you'd have more kids in the classroom, more ICT kids in the classroom. I believe the logic would be that we don't have 13 at this time that we anticipate.
But if the overall class size is estimated to be 19.6, even if that was broken down, even if you had 13, that would be 6, you know, a caseload of 6 for each of the 2 classes. Is that correct?
Yeah. Which is like right at the threshold. So if you had 1 or 2 more students enter the district, that's a pretty staffed class.
Deb, what do we have in our fund balance? I know I ask you this every time, but what's in our fund balance currently? 2.9?
Yeah, and it'll be about that, estimated to be about the same thing at the end of this current year.
At the end of the year?
Yeah.
So 2.9, you take out 1.9, is that $1 million left?
No,
Then
it gets replenished
At
when
the
you
end of the
take
year.
your revenue versus your expenses at the end of the year, when you net them out. So
How much each year, roughly?
I'm anticipating about $3 million, about the same as it was last year.
So even if we take 1.9 out?
Yes.
By next year, we'll have?
By the end of the year, yes.
By the end of the year, we'll have, that doesn't make any sense.
Because what happens is we'll end up having $1.9 million more of revenue than we do expenses, so that you'll have $1.9 million going back into the fund balance, but then you're drawing out $1.9 million, so it becomes basically the same as it was at the end of last year.
So you'll be back at 2.9 million.
By the end of next year?
That's
June
yes.
of this year.
This summer.
This summer. Okay,
So if 1.9 comes out,
right,
it'll be back by next year.
okay. All right. This phone system upgrades, I'm sorry, but I've been on this board for 6 years. I keep hearing about this phone system every year, right? I mean, didn't we just redo this phone system like a couple of years ago for $100,000? I mean, Brian, do you remember this? I'm like tired of this phone system.
I recall discussions
Oh,
on the phone
seriously?
system.
What?
I definitely recall.
Yeah, I mean, we invested a lot of money. I wanna say it was the pandemic year,
I don't know
like
if we spent
2020.
it or if we scrubbed it.
It was $100,000. I'm like, now we need another 32, like, how much do these phones cost?
I remember the discussion and I remember the dollar amount, but I don't know if it ever actually happened.
Yeah, I mean, did we just, you know, I don't know, what, is it 32,000 that we need for this phone system just this year?
No, well, for the upgrades, it's estimated to be more money than that, so we're taking $32,000 of those phone upgrades and using it for something else. So we will have to, whether it's buy less replacement phones, buy different kinds of phones, to do the upgrades.
These are classroom phones, office phones,
Yes.
stuff like that.
There's $100,000.
And there's also servers and things like that.
There's $100,000 in ARP.
Yeah.
So if we take out 32,000, still at 68,000.
So it's grant money.
I just don't understand this whole, yeah, maybe it wasn't done, because I remember in the budget, we had like, it was 100,000 just for the phone, to redo the whole phone system.
About 3 years ago, there
Yeah,
was
it was like-
150 in it, we took it all out.
And we redid the phones, I'm pretty sure we did.
I thought we.
Took it out of the budget.
Yeah, I thought.
Oh, we took it out of the budget?
Phones and the other
Yeah,
things
because we
that
talked
were
about the same
not-
thing, that we were looking at reducing staff, and we're like, why do we pay for phones?
So we're not really worried about reducing the money for phones, is what I'm hearing.
All right.
Yeah, I don't care about phones.
Yeah, I don't either.
So
What about?
let's look at the other things that were,
Is this where you want to go?
Or do you want to be an option?
I think it's before.
Yeah, be an option 1.
Here. Option 1.
Right, so phones we're not really worried about. Bianca had a question about the summer school.
Yeah, I do too. How many students does that serve currently last year?
57.
Oh, the Richmond Summer School Program? 57?
There's
A
no-
lot of kids.
There's no projection for that yet.
Well, I guess we would make an assumption that it'll be about 57.
And how is it staffed?
How's it staffed? Let's see, Debbie, we had a principal.
We had teachers, we had monitors, we had aides, we had, I believe it was at least 1 social worker, 2 social workers, we have a nurse.
They come here and have breakfast and lunch, right?
They get meals, yes.
Yeah.
Principal.
Yeah, so I think that's a valuable.
I want to put out there, I think based on just looking at these numbers, I feel like if we could reduce the cuts to special ed by one teacher, I would prefer to cut possibly an administrative position and if we had to, the foreign language position, because I just think those numbers are a bit high. And especially if you have new students coming in or new students classified. Because the rule of thumb is 70, 30, 40% if you have to, but then you would be going over that.
I believe, I mean, that's your prerogative, of course, I believe Ms. Coughlin has taken into account that there's a little bit of extra room in the sections, but that's your prerogative. Just as a side note, people don't seem that excited about phones. We do have $100,000 allocated for the phones.
Oh my God.
If it was your desire to take some money out of the phones and put it into summer school enrichment, that could be done. Just tell us the amount and we'll do it.
I mean, what is with these $100,000 phones?
Is there something wrong with the phones?
Yeah, exactly. Is there something wrong with the
Do they
phone?
not work? Or?
Somebody pick up the phone.
I'm new. My phone works. That's all I know.
Listen, the phone, who cares about phones? I don't care at all about phones.
It's not the biggest
I hate when
ticket thing
people
up
call my
there.
classroom. The substance abuse counselor. We talked about a substance abuse counselor, and that won't be 60 grand because it was more than that. So, but it pains me to let that go. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
asking for that for a long time.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it pains me to get rid of a foreign language position when
But if you
You
look
know.
at the, if you look at the impact, you don't it doesn't necessarily mean getting rid of foreign language at Lenape. If you think, I don't know.
I want foreign
how
language
much
in
would the
third
class
grade.
sizes increase by at the high school?
It's hard to tell, but some of them are quite small.
They were tiny. Some of them had 8 kids in it.
So the impact of not filling that position would be minimal.
What?
The foreign language position. If they're saying the high school classes are currently very small,
Some.
and
No,
that's some.
I don't.
No, some were like 25 in the chart we got, but some were like 8 and 12.
Right, so
But that's higher level, that's higher level Spanish. I mean, you know, that's like SUNY New Paltz Spanish. Like that's what
I
kids
mean,
do at that point. Go
yeah.
to, you know.
Again,
Only
it's
had
not
4
about,
sections.
it's not about the class size as much as it's about the number of sections, because, you know, if you're talking about an upper level Spanish class, you've got a lot of high-flying kids who want to take everything, and to get into Spanish is going to be more problematic if there are fewer sections.
Right. I mean, my daughter got a Spanish minor freshman year. She was done because of all the Spanish she took here. It rolls over to college. You know, it's an important thing. And I think, you know, having it in third grade, we've already cut. You know, we used to have it in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, now third grade. Like, you know, what's going to make our district special anymore? Nothing.
But I think we
It's
have
really
to,
sad.
I think we have to be really realistic about the numbers of students. Like, we've lost
Yeah.
500 students in this district in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That's a school? I mean, that's like,
phenomenal,
Yeah, it's a lot.
that's like, well, now they got up and moved, I mean, I don't know, and don't quote me on the numbers. Like, it stinks, and I think all of these cuts are hard, and I think, you know, I'm a former teacher, I empathize, I'm a special ed teacher, but I think we're not, unfortunately, in a position where we have to look at next year when we're faced with these next cuts, and the year after that, like the projections we're getting, like we're $5 million, our expenses are $5 million higher than our revenue. That's not gonna go away.
No, especially when stuff like health insurance is 17% of, you know, an increase.
Right, health
So-
insurance
Health-
is
just
$12 million of
Right.
our $68 million
Right,
budget.
$12 million.
Between health insurance and grant money running out, we're gonna be way more in a world of hurt next year than we are right now.
Which is why we
Mhm.
should not exceed the cap in case we have to next year.
No, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, I think I made it very known that we have to exceed the cap. It's not rocket science. You cannot run a business on a 1.23% increase. It's just impossible. I think anyone with any sense is gonna realize that. I've talked to a lot of people in the community, very high-profile members of the community,
and they're like, 1.23 is ridiculous.
So Teresa, just to be clear, you would like to exceed the cap?
Yes.
And spend less fund balance?
Yes, because I think
What-
you're gonna
what-
need it next
Wait,
year,
I just wanna
absolutely.
make sure we know the extra taxpayer money that we are gonna levy.
Right.
What is that, what are we doing with that?
But I think.
We're gonna.
Hold on a second, I wanna make sure we understand
Okay,
that.
I will pay for whatever this, I'm on the slide, the option 2 slide. I mean,
Hold on, let's
this
pin this down. I
right
wanna know.
here should make everybody worry. Okay, because we haven't even talked about the former district office, that just came
Yeah,
into the
that's a
budget. Okay, so that's, and, you know, I disagree with your numbers a little, Steve, they said it was between 400 and 450,000, so it wasn't 500,000, but, okay, you wanna say
You're right,
500?
it was in the 400,000.
It was 400,000.
Everything costs more than you think it's gonna be.
Well, I think that they gave a pretty good estimate, and so, whatever, I mean, if you wanna say 500,000, fine,
If
put a
it comes
sign
up to
there.
450,000, then you got.
Right,
5,000 in
exactly,
your
so
fund
I
balance.
get where you're going with this,
So-
but this is, just one second, let me finish. This right there should worry everybody, because here's an unexpected thing you just seen thrown in the budget right now for tonight. You know, this wasn't even discussed in the previous budgets. So now, you have that, because we gotta do something about that. You have a lot of other things coming down the road that are gonna be like pop-up things that are not $2, they're gonna be 100, 200, 500. And, you know, and you wanna go to a what's gonna happen to that number if we go to a 1.23% thing? And we wanna do that project, because that has to be done, we can't kick the can down the road anymore on that project. So where are you gonna get the 500,000? Just asking.
I also think we have to be mindful that we're keeping positions in the budget that are being funded by grant money.
That's next year's problem too, and that's why you need money
But
in
I also
your
think we
fund
need
balance.
money in our fund balance, because COVID has taught us you don't know what's gonna happen.
Right.
And you don't know that the state or the federal government is gonna give the same grant money. And I think, you know, I hate to go over the tax cap, but I think the point that you've made before, Teresa, that's compelling is that the increase in everything is significantly over, 1.whatever%.
I mean,
it's just, it is, but I don't know that we have to go up to 3.36, but I think before we even talk about that, we should talk about what we need to cut.
You wanna save teachers, you're gonna have to go way over that. You're gonna have to go over that next year too.
I don't think we can save all of those positions.
No, but I'm just
I don't think we
saying,
can.
this is the fine line. I mean, yeah, my heart hurts right now for everybody, including my own family who was affected by this. I don't wanna cut teachers. These people are my friends and neighbors. I don't want anybody to go. And the problem is that, everybody is like coming up and saying, we don't wanna cut. I don't wanna do that either, but we don't have any money. And nobody's giving a solution to make more money. That's what we need, money. So it's like, 3.36 isn't even gonna save any of these positions.
So you're, okay, just so.
Listen, I would like to go up to 5.
I'm just asking, I don't know. So you're asking for an increase of the fund, see the tax cap?
I'm not asking
No,
anything.
I'm
I want
asking you what
everybody-
you meant, when you made the statement, I gotta understand what you
Okay.
meant. You would like to exceed the cap
Yes, I would.
to save fund balance, have more fund balance, right?
I think you, yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I think you're gonna need it.
Tear down the
We're gonna
district
need it.
office, tear down the district office.
Maybe, I mean, so the thing is, if that's not in there about the district office, because we don't know.
I know.
We don't know what
I
we're
know
doing
it's a
about that
crisis.
yet.
Yeah.
But we
It's
know
gonna
that
fall
that's
down.
going
It's
to
a
happen
liability.
either this year or next year, we're gonna have to address it.
They came and they told us it's a liability, we
Right.
gotta tear it down.
Right, so, again, if we don't do it this year, you have 500,000 extra to put in, for next year. It's gotta be done at some point. So, and this is just, like I said, one thing. The EV buses is another big project coming up. And the reason why we can't have an EV bus right now, listen, I would love to go to EV immediately. We can't afford it. Once you have an EV bus, you have to have the infrastructure in place to house that bus, to repair that bus. So we can't go EV yet. We don't have those things in place. In order to have those things in place, we need money. We're gonna have to do a capital project to do that. You heard the man speak. It was in the Hudson Valley One paper last week. So not only this, we're also gonna have to do a capital project in a year or two, for sure. 100%.
You know, I mean, we have to.
I just looking at all the things that are grant funded that can be eliminated, the ones that are furthest away from the students are the phones, which we've all decided, you know. But also, as much as I hate to say it, also an administrative position. And even with that, we can't save all the positions. And I still think even with that cut, and if we don't fill the foreign language position, we still can't save all the positions, but we still will have a lot that's grant funded that will be gone next year.
So you gotta
So I
figure.
agree that we need to build the fund balance.
Right, we absolutely have to. You're gonna have to go over the tax cap this year and next year. Absolutely.
To focus this discussion, my suggestion might be that you decide whether you're going to exceed the tax cap or not. Once you've made your decision, then we can refine whichever option you go for.
You know, to me, it's a no-brainer. I mean, and like any logical person that's thinking logically is gonna say, any business can't survive on a 1.23% increase when insurance has gone up 17% alone. It's just, I mean, again, I'm just one person. You guys can choose to you know, agree or disagree, but I'm hoping that circumstances change a little bit so that those social workers can be put into the, you know, into the budget next year, not, you know, so we don't have to rely on, you know, and then Aster's a whole nother issue. I mean, if we have, I would like to see a log of like how many students here use Aster over the next year. Maybe we can get rid of them. If we have 7 social workers, we may not need Aster to be here.
But I just want to, like, I know where you're coming from with the analogy of a business, but
We're a business.
I understand. When people stop walking in the door of a business, you have to make adjustments. And we have 500 kids who stopped walking in the door over the last 5 or 6 years.
Right, but I understand what you're saying, but what are you not understanding for me? That, I agree, we have to make staffing cuts.
Right.
I mean, we don't have a choice.
What I'm hearing is Teresa's concerned about the district office, which is a liability for the district. Fund balance being depleted because we're facing tough economic times next year.
I agree.
Yeah.
I
mean, no one's denying the fact that we have 500 less students and almost 50
Right,
more
I get it.
Right, so I think we should make sure that everybody gets to speak to.
Yeah, please.
What, you know, you touched on the RFPs, potentially being able to add additional sections, which would mean more for UPK. The more students we have, the more reimbursement we get. Does that offset any of that expense next year for us?
We don't get any
or-
reimbursement for them. They're not officially students, they're pre-K students. We don't get reimbursement for the others, correct?
Correct, the grant funded.
It's great.
Oh,
It's
right.
a great thing, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
sorry.
help us
No, I knew that.
financially.
I knew that before I asked it.
I mean, if anybody wants to refer to this out of alignment, it's the Mid-Hudson Valley from the Great Recession to 2030. It's by Hudson Valley Pattern for Progress, and it's really interesting stuff. It shows how much not only like schools populations are going down, but actual populations in the Hudson Valley are going down. And how the population's getting older and not, so I've been like reading this, you know, all day and brought it with me because I think it's important for people to realize this is not like made up stuff, it's happening. And
Yeah. Steve, would you go back to the slide that has the students through the years, I think it was 2017 and down, and then it had staff and administration?
Back up,
This one here?
One of the first slides.
That's one?
Yeah, that one. Right, so we have, right, it's like, is it 500 or close to 600 students?
483.
What was it?
483.
So, and then, but then the faculty is going up like 40?
No,
No,
it's not,
No,
it's not accurate.
What is that?
Literally my job.
whose job?
This is,
Yeah.
My
that's
job.
David.
These numbers come from our beds data, correct, Deb?
They actually came from WinCap, and they came from the same date, October 1st of each one of those years. We pulled the information from WinCap for the input unit.
You know,
So-
one administrator on board for that.
So what I'm floating in my head, I have issue going over the tax cap just to pad fund balance. I don't know what kind of precedent there is there.
It's not
But
just
it-
for that.
Well, let's let Matt
But
speak.
in my head, I relate that to, I'm going to purchase a car, I need to take a loan, but I need to borrow 10,000 more than what I actually need because I'm not sure how I'm going to be financially positioned the next year. And there's no way that would ever fly in any circumstance. I'm looking at option number one with an admin cut, phones cut, restoring enrichment summer school.
What about language?
What's that?
What about language?
Well, language, yeah. Well, in option one, language is returned, though it's in art.
Yes, that's right.
It's returned in 3rd grade.
The position does not get reduced.
Listen, I'm not gonna be here next year. You guys do what you want. I think it's a bad move. Listen, I spend my money very frivolously, according to my husband, but I'm not spending the taxpayers' money like that. There's no way. And if you don't have anything in your savings and you keep dipping into this every year, this is gonna be a disaster in like 5 years. But again, go ahead. You know, if you think that that's the way to go, I think you have 2 shots at this budget. Number one, if it does, taxpayers will let us know. If they don't want us to go over the tax cap, they're gonna let us know by voting on the, yeah, they're gonna let us know soon. And then we can adjust and come back with a different budget, which will, you know, be the 1.23. But we gotta try. I mean, we you know, it's gonna save some things. And it'll help for next year. And if you don't go over the tax cap, and we have to do that project at the middle school, the old DO, we're screwed. Where are you gonna get that money next year?
Yeah.
Not gonna have it. You're gonna have to go into fund balance and take out another 500,000.
So I'm on the same page as Matt, too, with option one. I also think that increasing getting rid of the phones as much as possible, and not going too deep into the summer school is good. And I like the language, but I'm also concerned about the substance abuse counseling. It seems like, I don't really know enough, but I know that Glenn's been talking about it for a while, and it seems like a very important thing, especially considering everything that the kids have been through.
When we were talking to step one, about a substance abuse counselor, and we had pretty extensive conversations. It would have run the district more money than $60,000. They were certainly willing to make it work for 60 grand, but it wouldn't be a full-time person. I mean, I think it's super important. Our kids are addicted to drugs.
So you said an admin could be 160.
That would be an estimate.
And we're saying, right now, we're reducing phones, but phones are coming out of CRSA.
I want to make sure that.
Yeah,
Heather
sir,
and
yeah,
Brian-
anybody.
I'm still processing.
Because, so basically, the point I was getting to, we reduced an administrator for 160, reduce the phones more, the whole way. So not just, the whole budget line was 100, and we're reducing it by 32.
Or is it already been spent?
You could put your 68,000 into a substance abuse counselor perhaps.
That was.
Or you could replenish your summer school enrichment for that money.
Put into the substance abuse.
Well, I think we could potentially do both. If we reduce an admin and got 160.
Are you talking about reducing an admin?
I'm talking about reducing an admin, reintroducing the enrichment summer school, as well as keeping and committing to the substance abuse counselor, not just having the budget line and sitting back going unfilled for.
But then we're putting it in grant again, it's only for 1 year.
Putting which in?
Right? I'm confused, I'm sorry. So you're saying that substance abuse counselor would come out of
The general fund.
Would be made up from what we're gaining from the admin reduction.
I understand, sorry.
But the admin position is grant funded.
No,
We've not identified which position it would be, but
I'm just going by what's on the slide.
There
is a position, and that might be the position, I can't say at this point.
But whatever
the,
position.
The point is,
it's grant.
let's put it this way, whatever decisions you make, we're gonna put stuff into ARP so that we spend it.
Right, because we don't want to leave money on the
Right.
table. Right.
I'm just wondering if it's an actual reduction to the overall budget coming out of the general fund.
One way or another it is,
Okay.
because of way, if it comes out of ARP, then it comes out of ARP, and if it doesn't come out of ARP, then we can pay for something else that was gonna be going into ARP, we can pay for it with that money. But either way, we're gonna spend the money.
I'm gonna just bring up special ed again, because I know that we also are cut, I know that Deb went through the budget and saw places where we had earmarked money that wasn't being spent, and those reductions were made. That was about, what was that? Was that 800,000?
I don't remember.
Okay, it's a large number.
Which was that, from BOCES?
Yeah.
Yes. that was-
And, it looks like we're bringing kids back in, some self-contained classes, we're creating some new programs. But just based on the point made about mainstreaming students and seeing that 9 to 13 range, I'm not doubting the calculations made by Ms. Coughlin, but I'm just saying, if there's anywhere to put padding, it just seems like a place, rather than waiting till if the numbers go up and then having to hire someone back. Because we know even with students that are here, they can become classified. It's not a matter of new students coming into the district.
Are you guys afraid that it won't pass, the 60%? Is that why you don't wanna go over the tax cap?
For me, I think it's not whether it's going to pass or not. It's, I am concerned about making sure that we are being fiscally responsible with the amount of cuts that we're making, so that we get the budget into a spot where we are able to float without having to keep going over the tax cap. Does that make sense?
No, because you're not going to.
So if I'm in my house and I have some savings stashed away and I see there's hard times ahead, then I'm not gonna pull from my savings, I'm gonna make cuts, like HBO is gone.
Right,
Or,
but you're
like all this stuff is gone. So that's when I'm like more concerned about making sure that we are being fiscally sound rather than bringing in extra.
Right, but so you don't think,
That's
so what are you
one
gonna
time.
do with the 500,000 that we need for the district building? Cause that's gonna happen this year or next year.
Yeah, it would
There's
have to be
100,000 for the
discussed
mini
when-
capital project that is already in the budget.
So we're getting 400,000 then?
But also, that's something I think we need to discuss first to make a decision and then move forward, so it probably wouldn't be in until the next budget. So, I can't.
So we don't
really
need the
plan.
extra money? in
We
the
always need
district?
extra money.
Well, then-
Of course, we always need extra money, right?
I see what you're saying, but I think that making cuts is, I don't know that we have to go up to three. I don't think I would be comfortable going up more than a percentage point. But I would not want to go above the tax cap if we weren't also making cuts to,
Right.
the cuts that we need to make. Because I do think, looking what other districts have in their fund balance, I don't think that it's responsible to let it get as low as to get to get
Right.
lower.
Right, I agree with that, and then, you know, I mean, another way that, you know, another way to think of it for me is, you know, if you're raising the tax cap to kind of get some more finances, in a way, because that money's then gone, it's a one-time thing, right? It's not like that keeps going, so it's kind of like the grant money, it's a one-time extra, like a little padding, but then it's gone. And I don't want to be working on a budget that's kind of just like scrabbling all the time.
That's what's happening.
Yeah.
It's been happening for
I
many
know.
years here.
Right.
But I guess
And we need,
jump
and it
start
needs to
pulling
stop,
less
and we
from
need
fund
to.
balance. Like I would want, if we went over the tax cap, I would wanna be pulling less from the fund
Right.
balance for this year's
Right,
budget.
so for example, if we did the 1.23 that he has up there, but we added the admin cut, then that would take less.
Not much.
For example, no, but that's overtime, that's a overtime saving rather than a one-time.
I mean, health insurance went up 10% this year, or 11%.
I thought it went up 17%.
It represents 17%, what, 17% of the budget as a whole.
But it went up 10%. Is it likely to do that next year? Hopefully not, but like what if
Oh,
something
yes,
else?
it will.
You know, what if something else shoots up next year? The BOCES capital project, you know,
Right.
payment goes up $500,000.
So you don't think it's prudent to put money into the fund balance, so that way, next year, suppose you have to raise the tax cap to like 5, just to make ends meet.
Well,
At least you have some more in your fund balance to offset that
Right.
tax burden on the taxpayers.
I think my perspective is, if we're heading into several really challenging financial years, and we can make it work without raising the tax cap this year, you're right, maybe next year it will be unavoidable, or the year after, but if there, you know, if we're constantly raising it, eventually it's just too much. We have to balance, we have to, you know, fix, we as the board have the fiscal responsibility to do what we can to ensure that even though we're $5 million over, we're setting the stage to be better in balance, because clearly something is out of balance to be have our expenses be $5 million over our revenue. Like that's a big gap.
But you realize that things are going up, they're not going to go down.
Yes.
I mean, people always say, oh, my taxes go up, they never go down. I lived in this area for 30 years, my taxes have never gone down. It's
Yes.
not going to happen.
That's
I think we've
exactly-
all come to that conclusion.
That's exactly.
But
So,
next year's budget will go up too, and the
Right.
year after will
Right,
go up, and the year after
right,
that will
right,
go
but
up.
I'm saying if you're gonna have like an exponential next year where, you know, we know what's coming down the road, I mean, it's not, you know, like, again, it's not rocket science, so if you have, let's say you have to raise taxes by 5%, which is crazy, you can at least have some fund balance and say, all right, we're only gonna do 3% this, you know, next year, do 3% this year. 3% is palatable, I think, to most people. Because people realize you cannot, you know, run a district or anything not raising a little bit, you know?
So if we go option 2 and we go over the tax cap, that we will pull $500,000 less from our fund balance? Or
Well,
one-
essentially it was $1 million, but then we added in,
$388,000.
Trying to find that slide.
I mean, you know, but, you know, Steve added in the 500,000, so.
Okay, so basically we're talking about if we meet the tax cap, we're gonna pull 1.9. If we don't and we exceed it, we're gonna pull 1.5. So we'll have, well, 1.5. Well, yeah, 1.5, let's just go.
This was
think
put
it's-
on here because if you're exceeding the tax cap, you have to
We need to
spend
use
it on something.
Right, so what if
So I
you
put
don't
it-
exceed
so I
the
put it
tax
on-
cap? It's not that's not there.
Well, hang on just a second, so you gotta spend it on something, now it hasn't been decided yet, what you're doing with the district office. I put this on here so that you would have something to spend the money on, but the decision is still out there whether or not you're going to get rid of it or not.
Right, we could also say, go option 2, but
If you don't do something with the district office and you exceed the tax cap, well, then you got another 500,000.
Right.
for 1 year.
Right, but if we go option 1 and we wanna do something, where's that money gonna come from?
Don't know.
So basically, if you wanna tear down the district office, this is the option.
Unless you, well, you mean the option 2, but you don't have to go up to 3.36.
No, especially if if you're talking about admin cut, there's 160, which would, you got a difference of $400,000 between 1.5 million polled and 1.9 million polled. You throw the admin in there, there's 160. It's still the summer school enrichment, so you can almost get yourself to the $500,000 that we're talking for the district office.
That's, yeah.
Say that again?
You're talking fund balance 1 is $1.9 million. But option 2 is using $1.5 million of fund balance, so it's about a $400,000 difference. The admin position is what, Steve, 160?
We're gonna estimate 160.
So 160, summer school, enrichment, there's $200,000. Get rid of the phones, there's another 70,000 on this 32 that was budgeted, there was 100. So you're already 2/3 of the way to that district office.
Right, are you saying get rid of the summer school?
I'm not saying
Yeah.
anything, I'm just saying,
Yeah, I don't
like, that
think-
was that. There's the substance
No,
abuse counselor,
Right.
which that's dear to my heart, you know that. I mean, I fought like hard for that.
Yeah, and I want to see it.
You know?
And, and the.
So, but I'm just saying, there's ways to for us to achieve, you
I also
know.
think it's about what do we value, right? Like, I think that we have to make painful cuts, but also, if it's a possibility to exceed the tax cap, not necessarily by 2%, but to keep the substance abuse counselor, to keep certain things. I wouldn't want to get rid of the summer program. I think that's important for a lot of kids who have that summer slide or regression.
Right.
I think that we have to balance the fiscal piece with also what the kids need. And it's awful that it has to be on the backs of taxpayers.
Mhm.
It's terrible, but we're not gonna fix that system today or tomorrow.
Right.
No. Well, we could choose, for instance, to do the administrative cut and then use that to make sure that we have the summer school or the substance abuse counselor.
Right,
I'm
but then
fine
we
with that.
also don't have the money, we're gonna have to tear down the district office, and then we don't have any padding for that then.
Right, I mean, I'd feel comfortable if that's what we decide, if that's the direction we decide to go, and then next year, once we've made that decision, and then at the next year's budget, then we can budget for it. Like, I don't know if I
You
feel
also have
comfortable.
a $100,000 mini capital project.
And
Right.
since we're talking about the district office, the architectural firm comes in, right? We've been listening to them numerous times at the facility. So it's a liability, right? They're like, you gotta tear it down or fix it, it's gonna collapse, someone could be there. So, and the fact that we're talking about it, we know that it's a liability.
Right.
If it collapses, so, I mean.
And it's a one-time expense.
I'm a teacher of 30 years. I love teachers. I've empowered kids my entire career. I mean, the building, we gotta get rid of the building.
I don't think we can
It's a
kick it
liability
down the
for
road
the
and say we're gonna
taxpayer.
put it in the 24-25 budget. I don't feel comfortable.
No, I think we should tear it down.
Deb, is there anything in the repair reserves? Almost nothing, right?
$3,700.
Sorry, I asked.
I know some people will take it out.
What about ERS,
Doesn't matter.
TRS?
They do nothing.
Like, I know you can't, no one has a crystal ball, but like, do we think there's likely, based on previous years, is there likely to be a spike in those costs?
It really depends on the economy, because a lot of their funds are in stocks. So depending on how the economy goes, depends on whether those funds earn money and at what rate they earn the money.
So if they
If they earn more money, then our increases our cost, our percentage that we have to pay into them would be less.
But if they dip, then
Then
the amount we pay.
We
goes
pay
up.
more into it to help keep it stable.
Do you think it's better to hold them, like, should we be considering drawing a little from those, or do you think it's better to hold, again, with we don't know what's gonna happen the next few years, but what's your
I am concerned that there is not a lot of reserves or fund balance available in case of an emergency.
I'm trying to keep track of where everybody's heads are at. It sounds like we support the substance abuse position. I mean, how do we all, I think we need to start kind of like going down and figuring out which pieces.
Yeah.
I support the foreign language in third grade. That's my loyalty lies
But you
there.
can, but that's still a possibility, even if that position is cut.
Hmm?
On the slide that Steve had, there will still be foreign
Listen,
language.
I think that's there, I don't
You
think
want
that's
Yeah,
been cut.
that's not,
don't go over the tax cap?
But I think that's there regardless.
yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding too. Steve, are we correct there?
Well, you're correct that
Can you,
if you're asking me if the language position would still be in this scenario, then the answer is yes.
All right, so the language teacher is there.
But you're saying that could be cut, and there could still be,
can you go to the
Spanish
slide
at
with the
Lenape.
4 options for the language?
Maybe 5th grade, not the whole thing. I'm sorry.
I was just asking if you could go to the slide for the language teacher, the 4 options.
Sure. So, you could pull this off, it would result in some students having trouble fitting Spanish into their schedule. You can do this, and then you don't have a problem. You can do a combination of 1 and 2. I think if you reduce 3rd and 4th grade and just kept 5th grade, that would free up the teacher to go and do some language in high school.
And what's your recommendation on that?
Well, my recommendation is part of the big whole picture, but I believe that, well, I guess I'll be blunt. My recommendation is right there. Although I have no love of phones, I didn't put it in there, so we can get rid of phones and bring back summer school in Richmond, I get no problem with that.
I have a hard time with keeping the language position and not having a substance abuse counselor.
I also have a hard time moving, if we really want to keep a language position, moving from the general fund to art.
Because then we're gonna be up against.
Well, again,
We
I
only
mean,
have Spanish here.
you
That's
gotta
it.
spend the
We are
art
so
money.
lame.
Yeah, but if we, I agree with Teresa. We've talked about bringing French back, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
I
We
mean-
should do it. Then you don't do that by cutting Spanish. Because people can do both.
Right.
And you can't hire Spanish teachers anywhere. There's
Yeah.
You're hiring
Like, don't
people
worry
on
about it, 'cause we
Zoom.
can't
from, like,
find them.
Iowa.
Yeah, you can't find them.
Yeah.
We have plans to start regenerating the French program.
Yeah, so.
That is independent of whether we cut this.
I hate
I
to
like
say it, but I have a
keeping the
hard time
language.
with that when we're cutting like elementary positions, special ed, you know, like I
We
think.
are like falling below like
But
just-
we're also talking about others, like foundational skills and sort of life or death things.
Yeah, but I mean, every,
We're totally not.
no, I know, but I'm saying like, we only, first of all, we only have Spanish here, that's all we have, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, we
And-
agree, that's agreed.
And then, we used to have, we
Yeah,
used to be
we
the school
agree.
district that cared about stuff like that, so we started it in kindergarten. Now we're
Yeah.
starting it in 3rd grade, now
Yes.
5th grade,
Yeah,
it's just
that's
never
why
gonna.
we're talking about
We're
keeping
gonna
the
be
Spanish
every,
and
like, every
expanding.
other, I prided going back to my high school, which is near Westchester County, being like, oh, we have this in New Paltz and we have this, and they're like, wow, much wealthier districts don't have what we have, and now we're getting rid of all the things that
But
were like
we're not.
great,
How does
Talking
this
about
lead to us
getting rid
having
of
French
it.
though? How does keeping that position lead to us having French?
So let me just
Well, we have
quickly
people that
tell you
teach
the-
French and Spanish.
The French plan, quickly, the French plan is we're going to try to, they don't have it in the high school because there's no pipeline for it. I don't know where the pipeline went, but it went. So we're gonna try to start a French section or 2 in 6th grade next year. We're also gonna ask the Lenape teacher to teach some French and some Spanish so that when they get to middle school, they're more likely to pick up French. It'll take some time to get it up to the high school. And also, we have a certain population of students who come into the school who don't have their one language requirement, whether they are transfers in or they didn't pass or whatever. So instead of having a 1 year Spanish 1, get your credit, we're probably gonna do a 1 year French 1 next year, and then perhaps those students will stick with French. So we're trying to start off with a fledgling stage and work our way up.
Do you know how it used to work here? It used to work where 1 year, everybody in that whole grade learned Spanish. The next year was French, Spanish, French, all the way down. So
No, I
you would,
understand that, but I'm just wondering if now is the time to be focused on that, when we have kids who are struggling to read.
We're having, it's $122,000. That's
That could be for.
Could be for,
Substance abuse, special ed teacher, other things.
you know, listen, you want all those things, so do I. Raise the tax cap. Nobody wants to do that.
That
So,
gets us,
we want all these special things here, you want, you know, whatever, you want to keep the teachers, I'm all for all of that. But, you know, it's, you know, these are,
Should we do a straw poll for the language?
yes, we need to go around the table.
Yeah, good idea. I'm no.
No, wait, no, we want.
I don't wanna add it back into the, I don't wanna add it back in.
Okay.
Somebody else has to go.
I'm a yes, obviously. Brian?
Yes.
Yes for me.
Meaning you do want to add it back
Yes.
in, okay.
Yes for you.
No.
Where were we there?
President, Vice
It's only the deciding in this poll vote. Straw poll.
This is good, we should do this for a lot of things, we'll get through this faster.
We usually agree on things, but.
It's okay now too.
It's okay now too, I get it, totally.
So those who are agreeing, you're agreeing to what's up there, which is keep it, but fund it on a grant for 1 year.
Not necessarily.
Because I'm a no if that's the scenario.
That is a scenario.
I don't know that that's the
That's
scenario.
not the scenario.
Again, it
It's
is.
a scenario.
It
Well,
is, it is.
Based off of what I see in option 1, I'm a no to what that is.
Right, but that's, putting it in ARP is a way to spend ARP money.
Right.
Just like all the other stuff you have in ARP.
Right.
You gotta spend that money, but next year, that doesn't mean you're not putting it back into the general fund. That'll be a decision for.
Right, but I also suspect if we say, let's move it to ARP, so we don't leave any ARP money on the table, that we're also gonna say, now let's introduce a substance abuse counselor. How's that gonna be funded?
Which we might not be able to hire a substance abuse counselor.
How much is substance abuse counselor?
But I don't know that we can make decisions like that, 'cause we might not be able to hire another foreign language teacher either. I don't think we can make decisions by the applicant pool.
I'll work on that.
Yeah, as I say, what's that?
I mean,
And that's a person,
the way I
right?
look at it is if we vote to keep the Spanish, the language position, we're making a commitment to expand the language program. And what I mean by that, mostly in the elementary levels. Like certainly, does that make sense?
Wait, say that again?
Alright.
Well,
I
no,
voted-
because Steve said that would be, like, the idea is to build it up the middle school, so there's a pipeline for a second language at the high school.
But that also involved, there would be some Spanish at, you know, what was it?
No, in Spanish. and
Third grade.
French.
I mean, you can't build Rome in a day. I mean, so like, if we're committing on the language position, brick by brick, Emperor Hadrian said, we just gotta build, that's the commitment we're making.
I support building a language program, but not right now with what we're
Okay.
looking at.
Well, you know,
Can I say one thing? I just want to be clear. If you add French, we're not talking about adding more French in addition to Spanish. Like if I have 8 sections of middle school, 6th grade Spanish, and I add 2 French, that means you're gonna have less
Less
Spanish.
Spanish.
I'm not talking about hiring more
Yeah.
people to teach
Yeah, that-
French.
Yeah,
but that's okay,
understood.
if you have we have a population of, you know, Spanish speakers, first, you know, that's their first language, they don't have an option for any other language here. I mean, that's doing, you know, that segment of the student population a disservice.
So what I'm hearing overall is that the board wants to keep language.
I don't know, is that what it
I
was?
thought we just voted down on the straw.
So it was no.
I just thought it was 4-3.
Sandy, maybe you could take a little.
Well,
poll.
no, did you guys both say no?
Want Sandy to do it?
No, he said yeah. He
No,
said-
Matt,
Well,
you
I
guys
said-
no.
He wants to keep it, but not put it in the general fund to ensure that it continues past
Yeah,
next year.
which
That's
is
like-
great, that's committing to the.
Right, I don't want to keep putting individuals
Yeah.
on grant money,
Right.
but I understand there's some creative budgeting to be done.
We'll be creative and we'll make it work whichever way you want us to make it.
So
So-
language
so-
teachers in, let's go around some other things. We're making some progress.
Straw poll and admin cut.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes. Yes.
Can you guys start on one side?
Oh, sorry.
That way
Yes.
you're all clear as to who answered.
Are we going around?
Yes.
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 Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right, well, there's no,
There's something we agree on.
yeah.
So that's 160,000 real dollars.
An ongoing knowledge.
And yeah, an ongoing dollars.
Can we straw poll ripping down the old DO?
Well, that's not for the, no, we have to
Why-
talk
why
about
not?
facilities.
Decided that that's
We have
what
to
we're
talk
gonna do.
about
I think
facilities
facilities-
first.
No, but don't we,
No,
but don't we have to decide we have some money, because even if we decide that we're going to
Yeah.
renovate the building, it still costs money. And if there's a liability, if let's say facilities
Yeah.
and then board
I
decides
I
to
would-
put it off, we have to have money in case it becomes.
I would like
think
to
we're
speak
all-
further with, CPL to see exactly where we are at the bill, like if we could push it off to next year. Or if we, so our next facilities meeting is April, whatever.
Right, we're in
The-
process.
The mechanical, engineer is coming to that meeting from CPL. So I mean, I don't know, I would like to get further info on it, we just had that conversation. We did not vote officially to do that, so we haven't brought it to the board yet, so I feel like this is a little bit jumping the gun on it.
I mean,
We've had community members come out and say they wanna save it. I just wanna flesh it all out.
You'll notice it doesn't say rip down the building.
Right,
It says deal with it.
right, which it definitely has to be dealt with.
Can we take a straw poll to talk about making funds available to address the former district office issue? Right, is that what we're talking about? That's something here.
And let's start at this end this time.
I have my own opinions. I'm one of the few people on facilities that doesn't really wanna tear it down.
So you're
This
making
isn't about
funds
tearing it
available.
down necessarily.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, this is
yes,
really
I think we
tearing
need to definitely consider that.
But
Addressing it.
it hasn't come, there is no recommendation, like we haven't, I mean, I know it's out there, but I feel like,
My idea for it was I would like to see, there's three parts to it. We can tear down most of it and keep the better part.
But I don't think that even matters, we're not deciding that now.
Right, I know, I'm just saying,
We're
like.
just making money available for addressing
If
it.
we want to earmark.
Yeah, I
capital
think
development
absolutely,
for it.
yeah, we need to,
but we don't need to address that.
How long have you been discussing the district office?
Since I've been on the board, six
Yeah.
years.
So urgency perhaps is not there.
I was
Well,
gonna say,
the firm did say
It's gonna get
that it
there.
gets worse every day and it's a liability now.
Mm-hmm.
We need to address it this year.
Because we have it in writing now, that it's a.
Yeah, it's in writing, it's a liability. We gotta take care of it.
And the price is only gonna go up.
Yeah, so I am okay budgeting money to address dealing with the district office issue.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, we don't have a choice really on it.
Maybe that's tearing it down, maybe it's not.
People do what, it's leaning towards people wanna tear it down, and I get it. So, I think
Yeah, this is a hard one for me to answer, because I feel like the question is, it's a disguise, like, should we go over the cap?
as I said,
I don't.
there's some other things I'd like to pull on first.
Okay, what do you wanna pull on? I'm in.
Restoring enrichment summer school.
yes, I'm a yes on that, absolutely.
Before,
Sorry.
I don't know, can we get a feel for where the board is in terms of the options? Cause I'm gonna be honest, all this shifting around, like, I really feel like we need to be with option one. Now, we've talked about a couple things that might shift the dynamics of what option one are, but, I feel like if we just go around constantly polling, I am gonna lose track of what we're talking
Well,
about.
I
Yeah,
think that's
I think
about, I
that's
think,
valid.
how I'm feeling is that we're gonna be between the two, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the admin cut, I'm okay with doing something with a substance abuse counselor, a little hodgepodge here and there. We're gonna probably come into like a option 1A. That's how I'm kind of feeling things out.
What's 1A?
I don't know, whatever we tell Steve we want, he's gonna go back and crunch the numbers.
Well, Bianca's saying she
Same
wanted
thing as
maybe
Bianca's
go
saying.
over, I think.
I'm okay going over.
What's the adoption date?
I think if we're gonna go over, we gotta go over.
What's the adoption date, April?
April 18th, maybe?
3.3 super.
It would be the Tuesday when we have our next, board meeting.
You can wait till then. You can also adopt,
April 18th.
you can adopt a total, and then
Right.
we'll get you what you want,
Yeah.
to the best of our ability in that total.
Right.
It's,
Maybe we have to figure out how many, what, if we are willing to go over the tax cap and by how much, because then we know what we're working with. Maybe that would make it easier to make decisions. I don't know. I don't know what the best starting point is, but my head is starting to spin.
Yeah, well, I think it's tricky, I mean, Heather just said she's for option one, I'm also at keeping out the tax cap. I know, Bianca, you said you're fine going over, Glenn just said he's
Well,
fine.
I'm okay with the tax, I'm okay with option one,
Yeah.
because that admin cut could go back to
Right,
savings,
yes,
or not savings, but using less of our fund balance.
right,
So, there were some other things that we threw out here, so option one would be fine for me. We had some other cuts, which could definitely offset how much of our savings, which we are drastically low on, from using. So that's fiscally responsible to me.
okay. Yeah.
So I'll suggest again that you decide if you're going to exceed the tax cap or not. I think that, once you have that decision made, then you can fine tune the option that you're going with.
All right,
It is of my opinion that we need to get out of the pattern of exceeding the tax cap. And if we don't do it now,
When are we exceeding the tax?
yeah, we,
didn't,
It's only happened
how many times,
Twice.
we last year?
well, we have to.
I mean, I was on the board last year, but I remember, I thought we needed a super majority last year, but no. The 4.46 was the cap.
So was the cap. It was, but we went right up to the top.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I'm not in favor of exceeding. I think if we're making these cuts, we've given a little more wiggle room for some of the things that are very important that we've discussed, so I'm in favor of holding.
I would like to find I'm in the same opinion. I'd like to find a way to keep the tax cap. We've bought ourselves a little breathing room with the admin cut. If we eliminate the entirety of the phones, that's 100-ish,
No, 100.
100 on the dot, but that's grant money.
That can buy you enrichment summer school back and then some.
So, then we could go option one, not exceed the tax cap, save all the money for the phones, admin, that puts about 200 and almost just shy of 300 that we don't have to take out of fund balance.
Right, but we
Plus
also
we
don't
have
get a
the-
substance abuse counselor then. It sounds
Well-
like there's no support for keeping the special ed teacher, so I can't, that's fine. But I'm not comfortable with the 4 cuts. But I also think that, I just wonder, I feel like we're setting ourselves up for next year. And I think we're kind of patting ourselves in the back for saving, for keeping money in our fund balance. It's not that much money we're saving in our fund balance, 200,000. That's like a drop in the bucket with the fund balance.
So what would you like to do?
I think I'd like to know if we went up, what it would look like if we went up to 2%.
Well.
But it doesn't sound like there's support for going over, so I don't know if that exercise is worth it if nobody's interested in that, other than Teresa and I.
And also I would like to introduce the substance abuse counselor, so it would be even less going to fund balance.
Well, I'm okay, I mean, with the summer school in Richmond going to the money,
Yes.
right? And the admin cut, there's wiggle room in there for a substance abuse counselor and still stay under the cap.
Yeah. But to Bianca's point, with the other option, we were just saying, adding and taking 200,000 less out of the fund balance, it's not a whole lot of
But
money.
it's really not anything to
Right.
write home about.
Yeah.
But I also
Right.
think that in terms of the building by the middle school, we are going to have to do something. And whether, no matter what the board decides, it's gonna cost money.
Yeah.
And on the low end, it would be in the 450, 500 range.
400,000.
Right, that's the lowest end.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should at the very least be prepared
Yeah.
for the low end emergency, pull the emergency lever option. If somebody came and said, now that we have it in writing, that it's a liability. I don't wanna be having to dip into fund balance or whatever in the middle of the year to,
Right.
or I don't know if you can do that.
Or pay lawyers because the building fell on 10 people that were walking past it and they're telling us it's ready to go down, which is a reality. I mean, it might not just fall down, but it's dangerous.
I mean, I think the system is broken in terms of how we fund schools, but we also have to be responsible.
We're responsible for our building.
And
Yeah.
the students.
Yeah, for sure.
The answer to your question from before, Steve, is 11 years. That's how long we've been talking about that building.
Right,
And
yeah.
the reason that it's still standing is because nobody wants to spend $500,000 to demo it.
Right.
Well, here's a question I don't know the answer to, you might. Community beautification grants, anything, safety grants, is there anything out there that can help us pay for this albatross?
It's a great question.
Haven't had time to look into it.
Maybe a portion, I doubt the whole thing.
Well, a portion might do it for you, right?
There might be, Tim suggested, that there might be grants out there to help us save the building.
Right.
But, because it is a historic building in a, village but, again, I don't know, that takes time, to look into grants and, stuff like that, so.
Right. Well, this is the whole thing, is that we're absolutely in process in that discussion, so.
Right. And like I said, the committee is leaning towards demolishing it only because we could put parking, we could put a digital sign there.
Right.
We can beautify that corner a little bit.
So then the process would, if that's the way it all goes, and then it's recommended to the board, and the board says yes, then the board would go back and say, what about grants, right? To see if we can adjust the cost on that a little bit.
Right. I
But
mean,
we're
it-
just
it-
like not, we're.
Yeah,
jumping
Gwen's
on the
scaring me,
process.
so I'm like, maybe we should address it like immediately. Well, we're gonna address
I mean,
it
we
at the
don't have
next
to tear it
board
down
meeting.
tomorrow, but like,
Right.
we shouldn't be sitting here next year hemming and hawing about the DO.
No.
Yeah,
No,
right.
it has to be soon.
Right.
So I'm trying to fit the building into option one somehow, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
were close, because we had.
I thought we were pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think we were pretty
especially
close.
if you add the $100.
The $100,000 mini capital project is 100,
That
phones are
brings
100.
it to-
Phones are 100, middle, yep.
And that's, so we're already halfway there.
And the admin.
So,
Sixty.
To the low end.
Yeah, but you're
just for the record.
You're counting that
So
as all
if
these
you take
things
the
in.
$100,000 for phones, it's in ARP. So you gotta take
That-
something out of the general fund and put it into ARP, something like a language teacher. Something that can go into ARP.
Right,
You
and
can't use the ARP money to
Right.
demo the building.
You
Right.
can't use the ARP to demo a building, right? So it's a bit of a shell game, but we're gonna spend the ARP money.
I like option 2, with option 1 as a full acquisition. That's where I'm at.
I like that.
Mhm.
All right, so you're saying you like option 2, if it doesn't pass, we put up option 1,
Mhm.
with the cuts we've suggested already. Okay.
So then we would draw even less from the fund balance. So we would still do the 3.36,
Still cut it in administrative.
still cut an admin. So instead of the 1.5, $1.5 million, we'd be pulling 1.3 something.
Depending on what we want to use the money for.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I guess I'm not understanding. Like, if we're making these additional cuts, wouldn't there only be a need for possibly this building, but we haven't even decided on this building yet to go over? I'm lost now.
I don't think we have to earmark it specifically, do we? Like a specifically for, I mean, it would just go into, it would.
Could we put this into the
Got it.
facilities repair fund or whatever
I
that?
just feel like we're putting the cart
That
before the
needs to be
horse.
voted on.
Yes.
Yeah,
The
with
repair
the
reserve
building.
needs to be voted on by the voters.
You know, I feel like the building's kind of, we know it's coming and but I feel like it's complicating things to talk about right now, when we don't have a clear plan and
Again, I put it in there because
We need to use that
we
money.
need to spend the money. If you take $1 million from the taxpayers, what are you going to do with it?
So you don't feel that we need to earmark some money for that, for this coming year? Like you'd be comfortable not earmarking it?
I think that you've put forward some good ideas to get close. And you're getting close to something that we haven't agreed to do yet, but you're getting close. And I think that is something that is worth considering. Try not to give my opinion too much here, because whatever you decide, I am going to let the community know that that is an excellent choice.
Can I ask, if during the school year, more students are classified and you need to hire, you need to bring back a special ed teacher, where does that money come from?
We would have to find the money somewhere, whether it be saying we need to cut some supplies or that conferences aren't gonna happen. We would have to cut in other areas in order to,
Would less get returned to the fund balance next year?
in essence, it would be because,
used it. Yeah.
yes, use more of your total budget and expenses.
Whichever option we decide on, I think it would be wise for us to have some money put aside in case something happens to that building.
I mean, I certainly see what Steve's saying, you don't levy taxes without having a plan.
Just, yeah.
Here would be my fear. We do the 1.23. Unless we could somehow, I'm not saying raise taxes or whatever, maybe it's however we have it, I think we need to be prepared to spend $500,000 on the district office this year. Because a year is a long time to let that building just hang out. You know, we need to do something this year. This has been 6 years, and we put it off, that's been great, but now that we're being told in writing it's a liability for the district.
Right, CPL is here, so they can do the work, you know. We don't want them to like go away and then have to call them back.
I mean, no one wants to spend money on tearing down a building.
Right, it's correct.
Yeah,
It's not-
I mean,
nobody's
who wants
ever-
to-
yeah, nobody's
It's
ever
like
known
literally,
to do
no
that.
one wants to pay to have your septic pumped. Literally, it's like, who wants to do that?
Right.
But the building is a liability, which could end up costing us a lot more money because we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah. Problem is if it falls down and there's asbestos in it,
Yeah.
you know, getting into the air.
And there is asbestos in it.
Yeah, there is, I mean, so.
That's why it costs so much
So
money.
much money to tear down, because they have to do asbestos abatement.
Mhm.
and So,
So what would happen if that cost? I mean, because stuff comes up, right? I mean, not just the district office, but stuff happens. So
anything could
what
happen.
happens when there's suddenly a big bill like that?
that's why you have a fund balance.
Right.
And
It's your
here-
savings account.
Here's what prolonged the district office building for a couple of years. Is Palumbo moved in there
Mm-hmm.
Right.
when they were building the capital project, so they
That was a few
maintained
months
it.
ago.
They ran the heat,
Right.
they ran the systems, they addressed things as they were breaking, they were fixing them because they knew they were gonna have people in there for 3 years during the capital project. They're out now.
Right.
So now it's gonna be infested by
Right.
rats and mice and kids who have,
Rats.
wanna
Rats
do
and
some
meatballs,
exploring.
yeah.
There's rats in meatballs.
No, there isn't.
You know?
Come to my basement.
Oh,
Place
God.
completely abandoned, college kids walking by,
So the final,
hang out in there.
the last paragraph of the recommendation from CPL is if the building continues to be left unoccupied in its current state, the property will suffer further deterioration, may become a neighborhood nuisance. Given there's no immediate use for the district, and based on the costs outlined above, we would recommend demolition of the building.
That's from CPL's report?
That was the closing
Okay.
comment from CPL.
And that's, like I said, aside from me, there's, because I'm just sentimental about that building, everybody else is on board with demolishing it.
Yeah, I
and
think everybody's, it sounds
Yeah.
like everybody's like, oh, it has to go.
Definitely be outvoted
Well,
on that.
because, like, here's the thing, they were like, hey, if you have the land, so let's say it came to you needed a new structure, it'd be cheaper to build something new than the old building. And I love old buildings too, you drive down the street, you see a nice restored old building, but I mean,
Maybe that one's not so nice.
yeah.
It'll also, you know, it'll help the middle school with parking and, you know, landscaping, like their plan, CPL's plan was, you know, landscaping and putting in more parking spots, and then we were like, wouldn't it be great if we could have a digital sign there, like we have at the high school, so hopefully that would be worked into the 500,000 as well. So, yeah, I mean, it's true, we definitely need to earmark money, and it could be done, if we did, it could be done, you know, maybe hopefully over the summer when kids aren't there, or.
If there's any sort of partnership we can do with like the Shade Tree Commission, they might have a vested interest in.
There are people that have vested, Tim has vested interest, and him and I were kinda on the same page, and you were there.
Yeah, I was there.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, let's get rid of
Heard that a million times.
Yeah, right, I mean, there's sentimental value for certain people in the community, that building, you know, but, you know,
I mean, but we're just.
with our population, and Steve made a good point at the meeting, with our population going down, it's extra space, you know, if we were to repair it, renovate it, what would we do there? Now,
Or
we
a nice
had a
empty
lot
building
of,
sitting.
no, well, I mean, you know, I was like, why don't we put an art gallery or an LGBTQ center or, you know, something for students, and, but, you know, with our population declining, Steve did make a good point and said, you know, we have space, you know, we don't really need more space, because we do have space for these things. So, you know, it's true.
I mean, if anything, you know, with space that we would have that was cleared, if we had to, you know, came up in facilities, closed the Duzine building because it's gonna cost us $20 million to fix, and all the elementaries at Lenape, and the district office is built there.
So, I think we just
I'm not
need to
saying-
make a decision about,
These are just conversations that came up.
you know, about the tax cap, I think. You know,
I like the idea of staying in option one, and it sounds like we have wiggle room to get some less fund balance, right? So we're using less fund balance, you know, with some of these other savings, that if something comes up with a DO, we can address that.
What's our decision on, do we restore or not the substance abuse counselor?
I love the idea of a substance abuse counselor.
I think we could get money in the community for that, like,
That's a lot of money.
what's like 60,000?
Well, no.
When we were
What
originally
do you
talking.
mean money in the community?
Yeah.
Like through community
when we were-
agents, community organizations, you know?
There's not that much support out there for substance abuse for young people. There's just
No, there's
not.
nothing out
There's
there.
nothing. It's a
And let me
wasteland.
tell
What do you
ya,
mean?
Anybody who has a young, who has a teenager or a young adult in their life that has substance abuse issues that has sought treatment, there's very little out there. There's.
You mean there's very little support to have it brought in the school?
No, there's very little
There's
out
nothing
there.
for
There's
them.
very- there's
No,
very few
I'm saying,
services.
you know,
So I'm just saying, are you saying like not put it in the budget?
I'm just saying I think that there would be community support for something like that from outside resources.
I don't see
You
us
mean to
getting
give
this-
money for
To
this?
give money,
Yes.
to donate,
She likes
to
it.
donate.
She thinks
Oh,
that.
like, we could run it on donations?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't know, I thought it was only 60,000, I
It
didn't
is
think it was
60,000,
100. Okay.
but when we talked to step one, and we had extensive conversations
Right,
with
like-
step one, they had a person that was gonna be full-time, that was trained with kids, middle school age to high school, that could be set up in each building and could go between. And, there was a need, I go to places where there's hundreds of New Paltz kids crying for help, because they're addicted to drugs and alcohol, and there's nowhere else for them to go. So there was a need, and it was more in the vicinity of like $110,000, but they were willing to work with us, because these are organizations that, you know what, we're gonna do what we can do for you. We can make something fit for 60 grand.
Can't we have something like that happen instead of like
I mean, we
Astor,
could
let's
ask.
say? Like, you know what I mean, like have somebody come into the
Well,
school.
Astor-
Astor's not costing us because Steve spoke with them and it's
Still costing us
60,000, but
60,000.
it's down.
It's down.
You
So there is, I mean, maybe it's put in there and it might not come to fruition. You know, we could try, And then we might find out in a couple of months that this is just not possible, and that's 60,000 that we now have, or maybe we
Put
make
towards
something happen
DO.
for
Well, we've
60,000.
had it in the budget for a while.
Yeah, no, I know.
Didn't we have trouble
We had-
hiring
we-
somebody?
well,
Wasn't that the issue?
we had 2 people lined up to take the job, but
And-
there was an issue with, just hiring them.
Okay, so it was, right.
I think there's a definite need for substance abuse counselor. So if we could keep it in the budget, that would be good, I think.
We keep talking all the things we're gonna keep in while not going over the,
But I think-
tax
Yeah.
cap.
Well, we did take out the admin and we are talking about,
We take out
Letting
the
in
admin and
substance
shift the
abuse.
summer school to the art,
Right.
for the year. I think that's probably, that's the substance abuse counselor and using less fund balance. And the phones?
How much less fund balance though? I mean-
Well, I'm not hung up on using
No,
less
no,
fund
I'm
balance.
just saying, if we're taking
I
out
have
the,
no
if
idea
we're,
what
we're
the
cutting an
numbers-
admin position, moving back in a substance
Right.
abuse position, we're not cutting all the summer
Look,
school
it-
money.
Would you
The
like to
numbers aren't
take
making
a
sense to me.
5-minute break, 10-minute break,
That would be
and maybe Ms. Kaczynski and I could put together a third proposal for you,
I think
which,
that's great.
unless you tell me differently, is not gonna exceed the tax cap. You tell me you wanna exceed the tax cap, we'll give you that proposal, but think I'm hearing
I get,
you want to
I
do
don't
this
know.
without.
I think that if we,
Are we 4-3 on
under
going
the
over tax?
admin, phones, that's
I mean, look, we haven't had a
260.
single public comment encouraging us to go to the tax cap, so I guess, I don't know that there is support for it.
I think that
But-
we
There
could,
was
like,
last-
I think we
last
could do
time.
some of this without a
It
tax.
was
cap.
not,
we
it was
complete-
not
Did we
last
complete
time.
our straw poll?
No, people commented on it last
We
time.
did, let's,
Yeah,
Did we
I know.
complete our straw poll about going over or not? 'Cause I'm not clear on what you decide.
I'm not going over,
I would prefer not to go over.
others not going over. Brian and Bianca said they want to, Teresa said she wants to, Glenn said no.
I prefer not to. I mean, I would like to see what this.
So let's see option 3.
Let us try to find you an
Go
option
with that.
3, 10-minute recess.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Step outside. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I wish it was bigger, but option number 3 is to keep your tax cap as it is. Basically, it's option number 1, combined with keeping social workers in ARP, language in ARP, with the cuts that were required to get language into ARP. And then we can start the new option, which sort of starts right about here. These are the cuts that we would recommend, or that at least you've expressed interest in. There is money in ARP. There's a certain amount, I forget what the total is, but we use some of it to pay for the language. We're going to use the rest of that money, which again is money added to a grant to administer the grant. So we would take that money, there's $88,000 there, so that's in ARP. Telephones, we don't like telephones, we have $68,000 there. Any capital project would gain you $100,000 that we could use towards your building. There was a lot of money allocated for new screens and projectors and AV equipment in the middle school and high school. So Keith, $130,000 for that. The administrative cut is $160,000. Add that all together, you got $546,000. With that money, you could allocate $60,000 for a substance abuse counselor and $486,000 for a district office.
How much would we have to go over to add in a special ed teacher?
To go over what?
Like, how much would we have to go over the tax cap to put, to keep a special ed, I'm just curious, to keep a special ed teacher in the general fund?
Well, special ed teacher, 120,000, Deb, would you estimate?
Yeah, I'll look it up, but about 120,000. That's.
And then this keeps the 1.9 that we pull.
It's still, yep,
Yep.
1.9 million fund balance.
I'll say one more time and I'll stop saying it, but I'm comfortable keeping a language teacher and not a special ed teacher.
You're uncomfortable.
Yeah, if
Okay.
we're not gonna go over, I would rather keep a special ed teacher than language. Just considering where we're at in time right now. Not that I don't value language, I just.
How's everyone else feeling about special ed?
The only reason that I feel differently is that the special ed, superintendent or whatever, it's called, like, she was the one that recommended those cuts.
Like, I
You know what I mean? So
think
it's kinda
like none of us are experts on any of this,
Right,
we're all throwing out all kinds of decisions and opinions.
Right, I'm far from it, that's why I always
Yeah, and I
listen
think that
to
like
you
based
and
on the numbers,
have it
I'm not saying that the numbers are off, I just think that seeing some of them, like a section of 13, an ICT 13 going from 3 to 2, just makes me concerned, and it's not, that number we've cut a lot from special ed already, and that number can fluctuate over time, not dependent on students coming into the district.
Right, right.
Based on students being classified.
Right.
And it's not like IEPs will be met regardless, they have to legally be met, but there's ways you meet them, right?
Right.
You can have 8 kids in an ICT class with IEPs, you could have 5, there's, within that, there are, so I think that it's painful for me to see language kept in there, but not special ed.
What happens, and I probably should know the answer to this, if we do get an influx of, like, over the summer?
Well, we said we would find.
They would find money, okay, so then that would happen again, right?
And that's what a fund balance is for.
So I would support Bianca's change based on that fact. I could get behind changing the 122 for language to return.
Making this special education.
To make that special education, based on the fact that you think, though it's certainly not a guarantee, that with existing, if we reduce some sections in high school, we might be able to make some additional things work. And if push came to shove, like we said with special education teacher, we could hire one. I think hiring a Spanish teacher would be a lot more difficult, but.
You have a Spanish teacher.
Can you go back?
Oh, yeah, right.
Can we look at the class projections page, the like second grade?
Maybe.
No,
That's not it. There it is.
Maybe.
Do you wanna?
Or do you like that one better?
No, it's the one with the, maybe it's the one with the yellow with the special ed.
Yeah, that's the one that's got the.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Because, you know, I, oh gosh, I can't see that. Hold on, I gotta pull
That's
up
the
here.
one.
Hold on 1 second. I can't see that.
I've got it if you need it.
I guess my concern, you know, my concern about, there's so many concerns, where to start? But if that second grade caseload turns out to be 9 kids, but we have a third section of it, that's 3 kids with IEPs per ICT class. If it turns out to be 13, and we have 3 sections of it, that's 4. That, I mean, I you know, we are heading into financial fiscal challenges, and like we've talked about, like it's not just salary, it's health insurance, it's buying into the pension, it's, you know, it's a big thing, and I'm under no illusions of what kids are looking like coming out of COVID. If I had a wish list of things I could put in this budget, it would go very long. But I am just having a really hard time with 214 staff members, and as our student numbers are dropping, having these really high staffing and proposing a change like that when, I mean.
But even if you look at the ICT for 5th grade, that's a pretty high number, 21 split up amongst 3 classes. I don't know where this extra teacher would go. I just think it seems like there's no wiggle room there.
I mean, you know.
All I can say is Ms. Coughlin is confident with her numbers and she feels she has adequate wiggle room.
Yeah.
I don't have any more expertise than anybody else on that.
I mean, I certainly see what you're saying. If those numbers increase, we can hire somebody.
Yeah, that's gonna be covered, we have to, right?
I support option 3.
And so this would eliminate a cut, or well, not eliminate a cut, this preserves the language teacher, which we were previously.
Preserves the language teacher who we have on staff,
Right.
so you're bringing back one person.
And if we did have an influx, presumably it would be easier to find somebody for special ed than it would be for language if language didn't work out.
I guess here's my concern. Would we bring someone else in? Because you could go up to, say, 8 kids, 9 kids with IEPs in a class of 21. You could, and you wouldn't be, you wouldn't be out of compliance. It's just a matter of how you know.
Well, we would do what was best for kids given our financial constraints, so.
I guess that's what I just want to know. I want assurance that that money could be found if we're not gonna put it in.
That's what fund balances
Yeah.
are for. It's for when an extra special ed program shows up that you hadn't budgeted for.
And we're pulling a lot out of our fund balance, so.
Right.
I don't think there's any budget that we would all be super comfortable with. I mean, it's all not great choices, you know?
Right.
I mean,
We haven't even talked about the situation that I brought up with athletics, with the explosion of student athletes joining teams this year.
Right.
And having one coach with like 35 kids, I mean,
Right.
if you wanna talk about class sizes, it's like, you have people that are volunteering, being a coach in the community, not volunteering, but then there are people that are volunteering to help out these coaches, because they have such huge teams, and which is great. I mean, it's wonderful that so many kids are joining, modified JV, sports, but, you're asking like a non-teacher person sometimes, to deal with 35 kids by themselves. It's just not. So, I mean, I don't even know, like, Deb, I don't know if you've been made aware of like, some extra money for that happening. I mean, I know it's not a lot, but it's like, when we're, it's not anywhere near this.
I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Oh, I thought you sent,
Yeah.
I sent, so.
Oh.
Yeah, the crux of the situation is, we've had a big explosion in like
So are we
people
talking
joining
about
teams.
another thing we're putting in?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd like to, but I don't, I just think it's kind of unfair, that we're asking like some of these people to, you know, run a team with 35 kids, 40 kids on a team, one person, like, I don't know, I think, you know, it's, so there needs, listen, that's a minor thing, I mean, it's not a minor thing, but it's there's so many needs here, is my point, that we just can't, ignore some of these things. Like, yeah, I'd love to see another special ed teacher, I get that whole thing.
Well, if we could, we would make it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd like to see, people getting a stipend to help some of these coaches with 35 kids, 40 kids.
And we'd also bring language back to them.
Right, yeah, I mean, I don't know where to go with this, I just, heartbroken.
I can get behind option 3. I think there's been countless times in the past, during my last stint on the board, mid-school year, there's a need, we filled that need with a hire, you find it, admin comes to us and says we need this, justifies it, and we go, yeah, okay, goes on the agenda, and we do it. And if we think we might need, and if we can get I don't know if we can get a true commitment, but I believe you if you tell us that if we need an additional, special ed increases, and we need to fill a rec, then,
Well, we have no choice.
Right, exactly.
That's the law, we gotta do
Exactly.
it. Exactly where we get it from, I don't know, but that's what the fund balance is for. But I'm telling you, I do have confidence in Ms. Coughlin that she's made the best estimate that she can make given the data that she has. And certainly numbers could go up. They could go down too.
And maybe for this is just for the future, that I know that the board, that we have something in our policy about class sizes, and, maybe we need to also look at, ratios. And just as a district decide what we think are the optimal ratios, so we have some kind of a benchmark or a guideline.
I think that's a great idea.
Because, you could be in compliance and have a wide range of number of students with IEPs in an ICT class.
I'll go first, I'm a yes on option 3.
I'm a yes on 3.
I'm a yes.
Doesn't matter what the rest of us do.
I'm a yes, I think that we put a lot of thought into this, and there's no budget at this point that I would probably feel great about. I do have concerns that we are not really thinking about the future too much.
Right.
And that's just, I think we're all thinking about the future just in different ways, but I'm concerned with how much money we're taking out of the fund balance.
Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking we're robbing Peter to pay Paul here, and I think down the road it's gonna catch up at some point, and, it's not gonna be a good situation. But,
So at the end of the school year, we're projected to replenish to roughly where it is now before we draw from it.
That is correct.
And what's the amount if we're at 4% of our,
Yeah, what percentage does that represent?
What percentage does, it is right at like the 4%.
Which that doesn't really mean that much to me.
No.
No, me neither.
Yeah, I'm not worried, that's not a guideline for me.
yeah, me too, especially in these, and I bet you that's gonna change.
I just
They're
think
gonna let
considering all the
school
unfunded
districts,
mandates
Yeah.
and
that's why I think it's gonna change, they're gonna let school districts up their fund balance because
I
it
don't wanna
just
get to a
can't.
point where we have to cut programs.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling is that if we're gonna go over the tax cap and not bring back some of these teachers, then you know, if that's not gonna bring back some of these teachers, then kind of why bother? Cause if, you know, we were gonna go over the tax cap and save some of these positions, I'd be all for it, but if we're not going to do that, then it's no use going over the tax cap, I guess. But Brian, I did like your idea of putting up, the one, and then if it went down, putting up, you know, putting up number 2, and then if it went down, putting up number 1, but I respect, obviously, what the majority of the board wants to do, so.
I mean, it's not like we're gonna, I mean, we haven't even decided, we're gonna tear down the DO.
Right, so that's,
I mean, if all of a sudden it comes August and like we have, we do need a special ed teacher, we hire him at a fund balance, doesn't mean we have to run off the next day and tear down the DO.
No, but if you look to the future, it's going to happen at some
Yes,
point.
of
Something's
course.
gonna happen.
Something's going to
Right.
happen.
Whether we tear it down.
If something, I mean, if emergency of hire, you know, happens, we have to hire some people,
Right.
you know, then we figure that out a year later. Maybe the facilities committee doesn't even wanna tear it down, maybe they wanna sell it.
I
Who
think I'm
knows?
the only one that doesn't tear it down.
Did we all go around?
Well, somebody
I think we
should
did.
propose a resolution.
Oh.
And then you should vote upon it, and then
I'll-
we'll have an approved budget. I believe Ms. Irmo is prepared for every eventuality, even option 3.
The resolution reads, the total budget number.
Right, 47.
No, which is option 1, it's the same dollar amount as
It's the
option
same
1.
dollar amount?
Yes.
So,
It was 71 million.
Yeah, that's right, 71. So I gave you the tax levy.
That sheet says
So I was-
71,
428, 660.
So, wait, I'm too tired.
Do they have this resolution in front of them, or should I write it down? or-
There's,
I think we just need
It
the
says-
dollar, the dollar
Well,
amount.
no, the,
tax-
be it
it just
resolved,
needs to sub in the total dollar amount.
the New Paltz Central School District Board of Education, but I,
This is the remaining
Motion
tax
to it.
levy.
I have to
We
make
need
a
to have,
You need to
motion
approve
to
the
adopt
whole
the
budget.
budget
right.
of, what's the amount?
71 million,
71,000,000,
428,
428,
660.
660.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
I guess.
Well,
That's not enough.
All
Anyone
roll call,
opposed?
start with Bianca.
Yeah, let's do a roll call.
Either
Yes.
yay or nay, or aye or nay.
yes.
Aye.
yeah,
yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Good work, folks. Well, and easy. We'll move to adjourn.
When second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ladies,